LoveLore Library. Chapter 390. Yun Sangxue heaved a sigh of relief. Xia Wenqiu, on the other hand, felt that something was amiss. Father, you two chat first. Shui will go down to attend to the birthday banquet. Yun Sangxue bowed to Xia Wenqiu and left with the servant girl. Xia Wenqiu looked at Yun Sangxue's back and didn't miss the guilty look in her eyes when she left. Old General, are you well? Xia Wenqiu retracted his gaze and asked casually. I'm healthy. It's a pity that Xia Ximing is proficient in magic. Otherwise, we could have a good fight. Yun Bao laughed. Xia Wenqiu chatted for a while more before leaving the Yun residence with Yu Ji and Umo. After leaving the Yun residence, Xia Wenqiu fell silent. Young Ximing, are we going back directly? Yu Ji and Umo jumped into the carriage. Let's go back. Xia Wenqiu's mind was still recalling Yun Sangxue's actions. After traveling for a short distance, Xia Wenqiu suddenly called for the carriage to stop. We're not in a hurry to go back. Let's go to the little Xiantong. Yu Ji and Umo could see that Ximing was acting strangely today. They didn't ask too much and stopped the carriage at the entrance of the little Xiantong. But when he entered the medical hall, he didn't see Yun Xing. You're Xia Ximing. Lin Yao saw that there were a few unfamiliar guests in the medical hall. Then, she looked at the person in the lead. He had an outstanding face. You should call me GMO, Xia Wenqiu nodded. GMO. Yu Ji and Umo were both surprised. After all, Xia Ximing hadn't mentioned the surname Ji for many years. That was his mother's surname. Ever since he was sent to the temple when he was young, Xia Ximing had never told anyone about his background. Yu Ji and Umo only found out by chance that GMO was Xia Ximing's real name. But why would Xia Ximing tell such a secret about himself to the people of this inconspicuous medical hall? You're here to look for godly Dr. Yun, right? She's not here, so she should be at the Wushuan Limitless Hall. Lin Yao was obviously not used to Ji Mo's original appearance, she even preferred Ji Mo's ordinary face from before. Not here. Xia Wenqiu's eyes darkened and there was a clear look of disappointment on his face. Yu Ji and Umo were even more shocked. That can't be, right? That's Lord Arbiter of Fate. When Lin Yao saw the disappointment on the handsome man's face, she immediately felt guilty. Just as she was about to say something, a voice came from behind her. Miss Yao, can I trouble you to get me some hemostatic agent? Yi Baiming stood at the entrance of the clinic. He also came to find Yun Xing, but unfortunately, he ran into Xia Wenqiu. Prince, if you want to use medicine, why don't you just take it from divine Dr. Yun? Lin Yao looked between Yi Baiming and Xia Wenqiu. She had a feeling of being overwhelmed and unable to bear the sight of it. In one day, she saw two peerlessly handsome men, each with their own merits, and both of them were here to look for miracle Dr. Yun. You also know that the price that little wild kittens are sold to me is always very fair. Yi Baiming smiled slightly, and there was a hint of mockery in his phoenix eyes. Why was Xia Wenqiu here? Was he also here to look for little wild cat? Xia Wenqiu also had a lot of questions in his heart. Why did the dignified Dark North King need to come personally to buy medicine? The two men with the same appearance and strength looked at each other. There was a flash of lightning in their eyes. The two brothers, Yu Ji and Umo, also smelled a very unusual scent from their arbiter of fate. This feeling seemed to be hostility. Xia Ximing had hostility towards others. To be precise, the Xia Ximing they knew disdained to have too many emotions towards others. Prince, your medicine. Lin Yao saw the 8 tall men standing at the entrance of the medical center, one not leaving, the other not leaving. She was anxious in her heart. Yi Baiming calmly took the medicine and did not move at all. Lin Yaoer could only helplessly ask Xia Wenxiu, "Xia Si Ming, if you have something urgent, I can help you pass a message." "It's fine. I'll wait for her to come back," Xia Wenxiu said indifferently. Miracle Dr. Yun might not come back for the next few days. Lin Yaoer could not tell him that Yun Xing had hidden in Wushuan Wuji Martial Hall to avoid meeting Uncle Yun again. "Xia Si Ming, if you don't mind, I can help you pass a message. Little Wild Cat and I will be staying in the Martial Hall together. You also know that with your status, it's not convenient for you to enter the Martial Hall." Yi Baiming emphasized the word "together." Xia Wenxiu raised his eyebrows slightly, a trace of anger flashing in his good-looking eyes. He wanted to leave in a huff, but when he thought of Yun Ba, he could not help but be patient. If Yun Xing did not return to the medical center for a few days, he would not be able to meet her for a while. If his guess was correct, something would happen at Yun Ba's birthday banquet in a few days. Tell her that if possible, she must attend old General Yun's birthday banquet this time. Xia Wenxiu only suspected that Yun Ba's bloody disaster this time might be related to Yun Changxue. However, he was unable to reveal the secrets of heaven. Right now, the only thing he could do was to give Yun Xing some hints, hoping that she would go to the residence of Yun as soon as possible. Perhaps, with her medical skills, she would be able to discover something amiss. Yi Baiming also knew about Yun Ba's birthday banquet. However, based on his understanding of Little Wild Cat, that fellow's personality was stubborn. She was exactly the same as Yun Ba. She would definitely not personally attend the birthday banquet. "I will pass the message, but whether Little Wild Cat goes or not is her business." Actually, Yi Baiming wanted to say that if Xia Wenxiu also wanted to go, he would definitely not let Little Wild Cat go. "Then I will have to trouble Lord Baiming." Xia Wenxiu nodded and turned to leave. "Wait a minute, Xia Si Ming. I heard that the Si Ming of the Dharma Temple has always been emotionless. Why do you care about the Yun residence?" Yi Baiming asked from behind. Xia Wenxiu did not say a word and directly left. Yi Baiming stayed in the medical center for a while before returning to Wushuan Wuji building. Yun Sheng was in the medical center. She and Little Wild Bird were sitting on the ground. In front of them were 7 or 8 musical instruments. At the same time, there were 7 or 8 musicians in the medical center. "Master, are you sure you want to learn these musical instruments?" Early in the morning, Xiao Qian had just finished participating in the outer pavilion's trial when Yunqing mysteriously dragged him over. After asking, she found out that Yunqing said she wanted to learn musical instruments. To be exact, she wanted to learn the first 3 movements of the Song of Confucius after learning the musical instruments. "Yes, I want to learn the 4 arts. I can't know all of them, but at least I need to know how to play a musical instrument. Only then can I show that your master is well-educated and knowledgeable," Yunqing said with certainty. Little Wild Bird was speechless. She had never seen a young lady as well-educated and knowledgeable as her master. She would definitely not tell Little Wild Bird that the reason she wanted to learn musical instruments was because she had seen the effects of Yuan Bupo's Di Hong song. Chapter 391. Earlier on, Yunqing had only heard the Di Hong song played by Oriole and thought that it was just a so-so. However, when she was taming the Hellfire, Yuan Bupo played the last few chapters of the Di Hong song, which opened Yunqing's eyes. At the moment when the Di Hong song was played, she could feel that Yuan Bupo's cultivation had increased tremendously. He was only a few steps away from taming the Hellfire. If Yunqing did not have the Shino medical bangle and the 5 elemental Dharma spirit, she would not be able to compare to Yuan Bupo. Although Yunqing's current abilities were not bad, she was far from the top. Even if she was a summoner, it was because of the summoning demon hand. However, Yunxing did not want to rely on the summoning demon hand too much. After all, it was a magical weapon. If she was not careful, she would be discovered. A man's wealth was his own ruin. With Yunxing's current abilities, she could not protect the magical weapon. In a short period of time, the Dihong song was the only safe way to increase her cultivation. Oriole used a pipe. It was said that Yun Songlang's sweetheart, Yuan Shahua, used a guzheng. Yuan Bupo himself used a piccolo. This meant that any musical instrument could play the Dihong song. Yunxing knew nothing about musical instruments. Out of desperation, she thought of choosing the same musical instrument among all the other musical instruments. Therefore, after thinking for a while, Yunxing decided that she wanted to learn musical instruments. There were all kinds of musical instruments in the Wuji continent. For example, the guzheng, the pipe, the erhu, the bell, the shao, the sheng, the guzheng, the flute, and so on. Looking at the style, there were all kinds of musical instruments. Yunxing invited a few musicians. Each of them performed in front of her once. Then, she planned to choose the most suitable musical instrument. All of you, play it once. I'll memorize the playing method. Yunxing was quite confident in learning musical instruments. She had a good memory. She thought that as long as she memorized the fingering method of each musician, it would be fine. But this time, Yunxing was gravely mistaken. When Yi Baiming arrived, Yunxing was halfway through her work. A sharp, ear-piercing, terrifying demonic sound, like morning music, reverberated endlessly in the medicine hall. It turned out that Yunxing was playing the erhu. Don't be afraid of a fool singing, but be afraid of a musical idiot playing music. The musicians all had bitter looks on their faces, as if they had swallowed 10 flies. They were all famous musicians in the Jade capital. When they saw that the musical instruments they were good at had all become weapons of murder in Yunxing's hands, all of them felt miserable beyond words. Ah, that's strange. The tone is not right. Yunxing clearly remembered that she had memorized their fingering technique very well, but when she played, the sound changed. The songs she used for practice were naturally not Dihong song. They were all famous songs from Zhou State. Master, I don't think you're suitable to learn music. Why don't you give up? She was about to cry when she heard the words. It is indeed terrible. Yi Baiming also felt that his ears were buzzing. Musical instruments are not played like this. Yi Baiming casually picked up a guqin. It was a guqin made of willow wood. He tuned the strings and plucked the strings. His eyebrows were lowered, and his eyelashes fluttered like a butterfly flapping its wings. His long fingers with distinct joints plucked the strings. An ancient song, seeking a phoenix, lingered endlessly in the medicine hall. The mellow male voice and the beautiful sound of the guqin complemented each other seamlessly. The musicians could not help but clap along with the beautiful sound of the guqin. K.er also closed her eyes to listen. After the song, Yunxing jumped up and patted her chest. I've decided. I want to learn the guqin. Yunxing did not have a sense of music. There was no other reason why she patted her chest and wanted to learn the guqin. The scene of the handsome man playing the guqin and the smoke from the incense burner at the side was a classic example of pretentiousness. If she, Yunxing, could play such a song one day, just thinking about the scene made her blood boil. However, Yunxing was also very strange. How could Yi Baiming know how to play the guqin? She had never seen him play the guqin when they were in Jiaoya village. Besides, he was blind when he was young. How did he learn to play the guqin? Instead, it was the Oriole beside her who answered her doubts. Lord Baiming's guqin skills are indeed outstanding. It is rumored that Lord Baiming learned to play the blind guqin at the age of 3. At the age of 6, his guqin skills were the best in the harem. Now that I've seen him today, he really lives up to his reputation. Yi Baiming stroked the strings of the guqin with some emotion. When he was playing the guqin just now, he had also recalled some old memories. He started learning the blind guqin at the age of 3. The reason for learning the guqin was very simple. It was because his mother, Empress Li, was an expert in the guqin. Empress' mother would often burn incense and bathe at night, play the guqin, and wait for the arrival of the Emperor of Zhou State. However, there were almost 20 days in a month when the Emperor of Zhou State would not come. Although Yi Baiming was young, he could feel that his mother would be unhappy whenever Imperial Father did not come. In order to make his mother happier, he pestered her to learn the guqin. Empress Li was also a smart person. In order to make it easier for Yi Baiming to practice the guqin, she had once created a very special blind guqin. Yi Baiming did not need to use his eyes. He could rely on the touch of his fingers to play beautiful music. After learning it for a year, Yi Baiming was able to play the guqin freely at the imperial banquet. As a result, he was known as the #1 expert in the imperial harem of Zhou State. However, after Empress Li's death, Yi Baiming had never touched the guqin again. Who would have thought that today, for Yunxing's whim, he would play a song? Oriole, give them their wages and send the musicians away. Yunxing saw Yi Baiming sitting next to the guqin, looking down at it with a myriad of thoughts in his eyes. She knew that he must have recalled some memories. Since you want to learn the guqin, just find this prince. There is no need to trouble outsiders. His thoughts suddenly stopped. Yi Baiming hooked his finger at Yunxing, his eyes full of temptation. Yunxing had something to ask of him, so she was too lazy to care about outsiders. She immediately ran over without any integrity. Like a little pug, she obediently nestled beside Yi Baiming, very obedient. Yi Baiming found it somewhat funny, but in his heart, he loved Yunxing's rare docility. Yi Baiming taught, Yunxing learned. Unknowingly, more than an hour had passed. Yunxing had just barely learned the basics of the guqin. If only your musical sense had 10% of your medical talent. Yi Baiming finished teaching and rubbed the space between his eyebrows. He had always thought that this little wild cat could learn anything. He did not expect that she would also have a difficult time. Just now, when he saw her look like she wanted to chop the guqin with firewood, he had the urge to laugh out loud. Do you think that everyone is like you and can learn anything easily? Yunxing was not in a good mood. If it were not for the Di Hong song, she would not be willing to learn the guqin. But, speaking of which, can this guqin withstand magic or combat skills? Yunxing wanted to play the Di Hong song. She remembered that whether it was Yuan Bupo or Xian Mimi, their instruments were not ordinary. Sure enough, Yi Baiming broke Yunxing's fantasy. No, if you have the idea of using the guqin as a weapon, I advise you to give up. The guqin is very fragile. If you want to achieve the effect of combat skills or magic, you need at least a sacred level guqin. Those are treasures that can only be found but not sought. Yunxing thought that when she practiced the guqin better, maybe she could entrust Zhou Qingchuan to find a guqin through the influence of the everlasting Chamber of Commerce. Chapter 392. I almost forgot. Xia Wenqiu came to the medical hall to look for you today. He said that you must attend the birthday banquet at the Yun residence in a few days. When did you get to know him? Yi Baiming told Yunxing about Xia Wenqiu's visit. Between his words, there was a hint of inquiry. Of course, he didn't tell Yunxing that the two of them were provoking each other and couldn't see eye to eye. Xia Wenqiu asked her to attend the birthday banquet at the Yun residence. Could it be that something big was going to happen at the birthday banquet? Yunxing was playing the zither when she heard this news. Her hand paused. The sharp zither string drew a line of blood on Yunxing's slender white finger. Yi Baiming frowned slightly and grabbed Yunxing's finger. The smear of red on her finger was slowly dyed red. Yunxing was about to say that it wasn't a big deal. She had the Shinong medical bracelet on her body, so such a small wound was nothing. Who would have thought that she would feel a warm and moist sensation on her fingertip? Yi Baiming's plump lips had already landed on her finger. The tip of his tongue brushed across her finger. A strange feeling spread from the bottom of Yunxing's heart. It was as if someone had thrown a stone into a still pool of water. You! Yunxing was embarrassed and anxious. Don't move. When Imperial Mother was alive, she treated my wounds like this. Yi Baiming licked the blood off Yunxing's finger clean. Her blood was different from the stench of magical beasts' blood. It was as if it was emitting a faint fragrance just like her. Yi Baiming's heart unconsciously rippled. When Empress Li was mentioned, Yi Baiming's voice had a trace of fluctuation. For some reason, Yunxing didn't pull her hand away. Her other hand mysteriously landed on Yi Baiming's hair and patted it as if she was comforting an injured beast. The two of them were speechless for a moment, but neither of them felt awkward. After a while, the blood on Yunxing's finger was gone. Only then did Yi Baiming loosen his grip. Looking at the broken strings, Yunxing curled her lips. Her beautiful eyes were as calm as an ancient well. She said as if she was chatting casually, "I'm not going. If it were you, would you be willing to return to the palace to participate in the so-called family banquet?" The relationship between the imperial palace and Yi Baiming was the relationship between the Yun residents and Yunxing. She was unwilling to return. This was also the reason why Yunxing would rather hide in the dojo than go to the pharmacy. One Uncle Yun and one second uncle. Her ears were already getting calluses from their constant nagging. The imperial palace is a place where people are eaten without spitting out the bones, but the residence of Yun is not. If it was in the past, I wouldn't have approved of you returning to the Yun residence either. However, these words were brought back by Xia Wenqiu, so the meaning is different. I'm afraid that something will happen to old General Yun. Putting aside Yi Baiming's personal grudges with the Dharma Temple, Xia Wenqiu's heaven's eye was very effective. Although he didn't like Xia Wenqiu, Yi Baiming would never allow anything to happen to Yunxing because of his personal likes and dislikes. To Yunxing, the residence of Yun was where her roots were. Yi Baiming understood very well that Yunxing was a classic example of a person who was hard on the outside but soft on the inside. Her personality was exactly the same as old General Yun. She kept saying that she didn't like the residence of Yun, but from the last time when she helped Tang Yu, it could be seen that the residence of Yun's position in her heart was no less than little Xiantong. You're saying something will happen to old General Yun's birthday banquet this time? Yunxing's expression changed when she heard this. It's better to be safe than sorry. If you don't want to go as a descendant of the Yun family, you can go as Wushuan Limitless Martial School, Yi Baiming reminded. The relationship between Yun Ba and Wushuan Limitless Martial School was no small matter. The deputy head of the Wushuan Limitless Martial School was also promoted by Yun Ba. Yunxing pondered for a moment, but still couldn't make up her mind. Time passed in the blink of an eye. Soon, the day of Yun Ba's 60th birthday arrived. On the day of the birthday, the entire residence of Yun was filled with joy. Yun Ba had also changed into a festive outfit. He had been on the battlefield all year round and was used to wearing a helmet and armor. Not wearing a helmet all of a sudden really made him feel a little uncomfortable. There was an endless stream of people who came to congratulate the Martial Saint General on his 60th birthday. But in Yun Ba's heart, he hoped to see his granddaughter, Yunxing, come to acknowledge him as her master. Yun Songlang also rushed back. However, since he had left the residence of Yun Ba, he didn't greet the guests with the attitude of a master. Yun Songxue acted like the mistress of the residence of Yun Ba, receiving guests from all over the place. Why are you alone? Yun Ba was unhappy to see that Yun Sanglong was alone. He blew at his beard. The brothers of the hunting corps are outside. They said there were too many people and they didn't dare to barge in, Yun Sanglong replied. Yun Ba shook his beard and stared blankly. Just as he was speaking, he suddenly heard the guard shout, "Guests have arrived. Elder Chen's family has arrived." Yun Ba's expression became even worse. He muttered, "Those who should be here didn't come, but those who shouldn't have come are here." Elder Chen's face was full of congratulations. "Old General Yun, congratulations, congratulations. This is just a small gift." Behind him was a group of children and grandchildren. The most outstanding of them was naturally the future crown princess, Chen Lian. "You brought a group of children and grandchildren over to celebrate my birthday. What is the meaning of this?" Yun Ba was furious when he saw this. After Elder Chen finished his congratulations, he pretended to look around. Why don't I see His Majesty and Her Majesty the Empress? Even His Majesty the Crown Prince didn't come. The Emperor of Zhou State didn't come personally to celebrate the birthday of an old official. He only ordered the palace eunuchs to send over a big gift. It seemed that Tang Yu's incident had more or less affected the Yun residents. Yun Ba's face darkened. Just as he was about to explode, he suddenly heard the guard shout, "Guests have arrived. Imperial Consort Wenren has arrived." Imperial Consort. Imperial Consort Wenren was the most favored consort of the Emperor of Zhou State other than the Empress. Other than the Empress, she was also the only imperial concubine with a son. It was just that her son was still young, and her family was also a prominent family in Jade Capital. However, imperial concubine Wenren kept a low profile and rarely interacted with the court officials outside of her own family. This time, she personally came out of the palace to congratulate the Yun residents. It was quite rare. For Old General's birthday, this consort has specially sent over a Southern Sea jade coral. Imperial Consort Wenren's appearance was very delicate. Her facial features were quite similar to Wenren Xiu's. She came this time because of Wenren Xiu. Her troublemaking younger brother had told her that Yun Xing of the Yun residence had helped him a lot and asked her to take care of the Yun residence. When Tang Yu's incident happened, the fourth prince was unwell. Imperial Consort Wenren couldn't even take care of herself, so she didn't intervene. This time, she came personally to congratulate old General Yun on his birthday. The Emperor and the Empress didn't come, but a consort came. This could be considered as giving some face to Yun Ba. Elder Chen snorted. Yun Ba's back also straightened a little. Just as he welcomed Imperial Consort Wenren in, he suddenly heard another voice, "Welcome, Yujing Soldier Hunting Union has sent over a gift." The Soldier Hunting Union sent over a gift because of Yun Sanglong and Yen Yun. Even the Soldier Hunting Union was related to the Yun residents. The guests discussed animatedly. They didn't expect the general's residence, which was rumored to be on the verge of collapse, to have so many forces behind it. "Thank you for your tip, 070, and 960 drops. Monday, twist and twist for tickets. There will be more in the afternoon." Chapter 393. Suddenly, he heard someone say, "Welcome, the everlasting Chamber of Commerce has sent 1,000-year-old profound snow ginseng." A classless Chamber of Commerce. Yun Ba couldn't remember when he had established a relationship with the everlasting Chamber of Commerce. However, he didn't mind receiving too many gifts, so he just accepted it first. Yun Ba looked to the side at Elder Chin, whose expression was getting uglier and uglier. In his heart, he felt more carefree than if he had drunk 10 jeans of good wine. "A guest has arrived. Xia Ximing from the Dharma Temple has arrived with a gift." Xia Wenqiu walked into the crowded general's mansion and looked around. He was disappointed to find that Yunxing wasn't here. Guests and gifts came in waves. In the hall, there was an endless stream of guests, but Yunba didn't see the person he wanted to see the most. In the end, he was already a little irritable, his old eyes staring at every guest that came in, as if he had a grudge against them for killing his son and stealing his wife. The guests were so scared that their hair stood on end, their faces pale as they took their seats. The birthday banquet was about to start, and the guests outside the Yun mansion were getting fewer and fewer. Yunba couldn't help but feel disheartened. Just as he was about to take his seat, he suddenly heard a shout from the door. The Wuxuan Everlasting Hall's deputy director has led a group of disciples here to celebrate the birthday. Zhonli strode in with a few disciples behind him. When Yunba saw them, his old eyes immediately became clear. Yunba was delighted and was about to go welcome the guests. His originally disappointed expression immediately disappeared. Behind Zhonli were a few of his favorite disciples. They were the limitless three talents, Yi Baiming, Bu Zhouxiao, Qing Bai, Yunxing and a few other female disciples. When Yun Songlong saw his niece, he was also very happy, but Yun Songshue's face was gloomy. "Old General, Zhonli came late, please forgive me." Zhonli handed over a gift. "It's good that you're here, there's no need to bring gifts. We're all family. Yunba's old face was smiling like a chrysanthemum, his iron palms fiercely slapping Zhonli's shoulders. His eyes couldn't stop staring at his granddaughter. Zhonli's eyes were wide open from the slaps, and he had a crying face. Yunxing pretended to ignore him. She had struggled for a long time today, and finally, under Zhonli's persuasion, she came. Yunxing was still worried about Yunba's health. He was old but strong. After seeing her granddaughter, his face glowed with health. He didn't look like he had any mishap at all. Yunxing was a little puzzled. Her pair of beautiful eyes looked around, wanting to find Xia Wenqiu and ask him what was going on. Coincidentally, she was met with Xia Wenqiu's kind smile. Who would have thought that Yi Baiming would impartially block her direction and completely block Xia Wenqiu's gaze? Zhonli led his beloved disciples to their seats. Today's birthday banquet at the residence of Yun had been meticulously prepared. They had even invited the city's most famous opera troupe to set up a stage in the courtyard. The guests took their seats and the wine was served. Yunba was about to announce the start of the banquet. "A guest has arrived." Another long voice rang out. At this moment, the residence of Yun was already full of guests. Basically, all the guests on the list had arrived. How could there be another guest at this time? The gatekeeper hurried over and whispered in Uncle Yun's ear. When Uncle Yun heard this, his originally joyous face couldn't help but turn serious. He hesitated for a moment, then walked to Yunba's side and whispered. Yunxing noticed that Yunba's expression had turned gloomy in an instant. "What are the Dark Crown Prince of Later Qin and Tian Kezi doing here?" Yunba lowered his voice, but the seats closer to him could still hear him clearly. Yun Songlong and Zhonli, who were seated below, also stopped drinking. "The Dark Crown Prince of Later Qin has arrived." A sudden shout rang out. The residence of Yun was first in an uproar, followed by a deathly silence. When did the residents of Yun become friends with the Later Qin? Grand Secretary Qin, who had been in a bad mood earlier, immediately perked up and waited to see Yunba's good show. The guards of the residence of Yun stood in a row, and 3 dazzling men walked in. The 3 men were of different ages, but their identities were all top-notch existences in the Wuji continent. The one walking at the front was actually the youngest, but no one dared to look down on him. This person was dressed in a gorgeous black Qilin battle robe. His figure was tall and straight, like a treasured sword that was ready to be unsheathed at any time. He walked with a majestic gait. Even in the dark night, his pair of black eyes shone brightly, emitting a beast-like glow. His red hair was like fire, wild and wild. The one in the lead was the dark crown prince of later Qin. The person in the middle was dressed in an elegant green robe. It was a pity that he had a pair of upside-down triangular eyes, which revealed a trace of insidiousness. Xian Wuji. Yun Songlong clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. He stared unwaveringly at the man in the middle. The last person was a man in his 40s in the prime of his life. He had a bald head and a tiger-like forehead. The muscles on his body were smooth and tight, and he looked very well built. With every step he took, the tiles under his feet sank a few inches. Although he was the last person to walk in, when he walked in, the sound of discussion was the loudest. This was especially so for the martial artists and generals present. When they saw this person, they discussed endlessly. Zhou State revered martial arts. To be able to make the martial artists of Zhou State so agitated, the other party must also be a peerless martial artist. Tian Kz. Heavens, am I seeing things? It's the later Qin martial saint, Tian Kz. To be able to see two martial saints of the current era in one day, for many martial artists, tonight was definitely an unforgettable night. Tian Kz. Wasn't that the later Qin martial saint who fought to a draw with Yun Ba in the battle where Yun Songlong was seriously injured? Because of this, the three nations had no choice but to sign an armistice agreement, and the Grand Emperor's conspiracy had failed. When Yun Xing saw these three people, her heart skipped a beat. Could this be the thing that Xia Wenqiu said was about to happen in the Yun residence? It was Yun Ba's 60th birthday, and the later Qin crown prince and later Qin martial saint, as well as Xian Wuji, who was at odds with the Yun residence, had all paid a visit at the same time. This matter was definitely not simple. Old General Yun, long time no see. How have you been? Why didn't you inform Tian Kz that it's your 60th birthday? I also wanted to come and ask for a cup of wine to drink. When the burly man saw Yun Ba, he laughed as if he had seen a close friend of many years. Old brother Tian, you really like to joke. The wine in the Yun residence is just ordinary wine. How could we dare to trouble you to come and ask for wine? Yun Ba also knew that those who came did not come with good intentions. He slowly got up. Although he spoke in a jovial manner, his gaze was as sharp as a fierce tiger's. While Yun Ba and Tian Kz were having a war of words, the hidden crown prince's thoughts were focused on finding the person he was looking for. He had already found out that the summoner called Yan Yun's true identity was Sun Si of the Yun residence. She was the former sky sorcerer and the only daughter of Yun Songhai. Today was Yun Ba's birthday, and he was sure that Yun Xing would be present. There were countless people present, but the hidden crown prince fixed his gaze on Yun Xing. It was her. Chapter 394. The dark crown prince's gaze landed on Yun Xing and his eyes narrowed slightly. When he saw the delicate and refined young lady behind Zhonli, even though her appearance was very different from the one he had seen before. Her facial features, especially that pair of bright eyes, were unforgettable. The dark crown prince's thin lips pursed together and curled up slightly, revealing a cruel smile. In almost a second, he confirmed Yun Xing's identity. A trace of astonishment and surprise flashed across his eyes. His heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat's paw. Just thinking about her made him excited. This kind of explicit gaze made Yun Xing very uncomfortable. The dark crown prince's gaze was as if he was stripping off her clothes one by one. She was completely naked and it made her feel humiliated. Yun Xing lifted her head and glared fiercely at the dark crown prince with her beautiful eyes. In the dark crown prince's eyes, Yun Xing's actions were unruly and delicate. If it wasn't for the fact that there were people around, he would have already laughed out loud. Whether it was the grandson of the Yun residents or Yan Yun, he, Duga Xiu, was definitely going to be hers. Just as the Dark Crown Prince was recklessly sizing up his prey, two displeased gazes shot over. The Dark Crown Prince frowned and noticed the two people. One person was like the stars in the night sky, hiding in the dark. The other person was like the warm sun in winter, emitting a luster that was hard to ignore. Right at this moment, Yunba suddenly changed the topic. It's fine if Brother Tian is here to ask for wine. But could it be that the Dark Crown Prince and young City Lord Xian are also here to ask for wine? Everyone's gaze turned toward the Dark Crown Prince. Although Zhou State and later Qin State weren't at war, the Crown Prince of another state had entered the capital of another state without prior notice. This would inevitably raise the alarm. The Dark Crown Prince faintly smiled. Although he was smiling, his smile caused others to feel a chill run down their spines. He glanced around and his gaze landed on Yunsheng. Yunba's question interrupted the three people's exchange of glances. Yunba also noticed the young man who came with Tian Kezi and could tell that he had an extraordinary identity. However, he didn't expect that person to be the Dark Crown Prince. Old General, there's no need to panic. Xiao came to the Jade Capital today to congratulate you on your birthday and also for the purple gold ore vein at the border. The Dark Crown Prince retracted his gaze. It seemed that the lass had many protectors by her side. But it didn't matter. The law of the jungle was the Dark Prince's hobby. Yunba immediately understood what was going on when he heard about the purple gold mine. It seemed that the news of the purple gold mine had been leaked. Yunba was also very calm. He chuckled, "Many thanks to your highness for personally coming to celebrate this old man's birthday. However, I wonder what is this purple gold mine that your highness mentioned? Old man, you're still pretending." The Dark Crown Prince sneered. "Old General, don't hide it. Zhou State's appetite is not small. That purple gold ore vein was originally an agreement between the three states to be developed together. Now, Zhou State is the sole owner. Tang Yuan may be able to tolerate this, but my later Qin can't." As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd burst into an uproar again. The matter of the purple gold ore vein couldn't be concealed. Sooner or later, it would be spread out. However, the Dark Crown Prince kept saying that Zhou State was the sole owner of the entire purple gold ore vein. Where did this come from? Only a few important people knew that the purple gold ore vein had been divided into three parts. More than 50% of it had been obtained by the mysterious person, Tang Yuan. The remaining 50% was divided equally according to the agreement between Zhou State's emperor and Zhong Yi. Crown Prince, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. My Zhou State did obtain some purple gold ore, but we definitely didn't obtain it alone. Crown Prince, I'm afraid you've been tricked by Tang Yuan State. Our country only obtained 50% of the ore vein. Yun Xianglong stepped forward and explained the ins and outs of the matter. General Yun, there's no need to be so hypocritical. Don't beat around the bush. Zhou State is also well-intentioned. On the surface, they let Tang Yuan obtain 50% of the purple gold ore, but secretly sent troops to massacre Tang Yuan's magic smelting factory. This time, Tang Yuan suffered heavy losses. More than 100 sorcerers died or went missing. The purple gold ore was also completely looted. Apart from Zhou State, who else could do such a thing? The Dark Crown Prince insisted. He was also furious when he heard the news. Zhou State and Tang Yuan actually excavated the purple gold ore vein right under his nose without him knowing it all. Looted it all. Even Yun Sheng was bewildered. She didn't expect there to be such a development behind this matter. Who was so capable? Then why did Crown Prince come today? Before the birthday banquet started, the joyous atmosphere was completely washed away by the sudden arrival of the Dark Crown Prince and the others. with the martial saint of later Qin accompanying him and the young city lord of Grand Emperor City. The Dark Crown Prince came with full confidence this time. The atmosphere in the Yun residence had already become tense. Imperial consort Wenren frowned and quietly ordered her servants to bring the news back to the palace immediately. It's very simple. I'm naturally here today for the purple gold or vein. I don't care who the purple gold or vein ends up being. I only have one condition. Chapter 395. The Emperor of Zhou State still came in the end. Today was the birthday banquet of the Yun residence. The Emperor of Zhou State did not personally attend because he wanted to give the Yun residents the cold shoulder. However, the Emperor of Zhou State ordered people to keep an eye on the Yun residence. In just a few hours, the name list and background of every guest who entered the Yun residence appeared in the imperial study of the Emperor of Zhou State. However, who would have thought that such an ordinary birthday banquet would cause such a huge uproar? The mixed forces of various worlds even led to a war. This was something that the Emperor of Zhou State did not expect. As soon as the Emperor of Zhou State appeared, the Yun residence was immediately surrounded. Countless crossbows and imperial mages were lying in ambush in the dark. As long as the Emperor of Zhou State gave the order, no one in the Yun residence would be able to escape. The Emperor of Zhou State was dressed in a bright yellow imperial robe. He walked with a majestic gait and his aura was unparalleled. Long live the Emperor! Thunderous cheers came from both inside and outside the Yun residence. However, the Dark Prince and the others stood calmly. The Emperor of Zhou State could not help but show some anger on his face. His anger was not only directed at the Dark Crown Prince and the others, it was also directed at Yun Sanglong and the others. The purple gold mine was divided into two. He originally thought that half of it had fallen into Tang Yuan's hands. However, after hearing the Dark Prince's words, the whereabouts of the ore were unknown. The Emperor of Zhou State's first suspect was the Sky Hunting Corps. What exactly is going on? Yun Sanglong, Yen Yun. I have already given you full authority over the purple gold mine. Could it be that you dare to deceive the Emperor and embezzle the purple gold mine without permission? The Emperor of Zhou State was furious. Yun Sanglong was speechless. Seeing this, Yun Xing walked out calmly. In front of nearly 1,000 people in the Yun residence, Yun Xing was calm and said in a crisp voice, "Your Majesty is wise. The Sky Hunting Corps is loyal to Zhou State. The sun and moon can bear witness. Our hunting corps is just a newly established hunting corps. Even with all of our elites, we only have a few dozen hunters. When they entered the mine that day, for the sake of the safety of the villagers, all of them participated in the rescue. Where would they find the manpower to plunder the remaining ores? If the Emperor did not believe it, he could ask the villagers in the mining area and the border guards. If His Majesty still did not believe it, he could ask the young city lord of Grand Emperor City. He was also in the mining area that day. If there is a single lie, my Heavenly Extermination Hunting Corps will be at His Majesty's mercy. When the Zhou State's Emperor heard this, he realized that with the size and numbers of the Heaven Hunting Army, it was impossible for them to kill hundreds of Tang Yuan's mages at the same time. Is this the young city lord of Grand Emperor City? May I ask if you noticed anything suspicious about the Heaven Extermination Hunting Corps that day? The Zhou State Emperor was unable to find a witness for the time being, but Xian Wuji was a ready-made witness. Xian Wuji did not expect that Yun Xing would suddenly change the topic to him. This young city lord did not pay attention. Did young city lord really not pay attention, or was he pretending not to? Or did young city lord have other plans at that time? For example, secretly sneaking in and stealing the remaining ores. Yun Xing's voice was stern as she suddenly questioned Xian Wuji. She already knew that Xian Wuji harbored evil intentions in the Jade Capital, but she did not expect him to be in hiding for so long and actually act together with the later Qin's hidden prince. When Yunxing said this, the Zhou State's emperor and the hidden prince could not help but become suspicious. The Heaven Extermination Hunting Corps did not have the strength to act on both sides, but it was different if it was the Grand Emperor City. With the thousands of years of foundation of the Grand Emperor City, it was not impossible for them to find out the location of the ore vein and secretly rob it. Xian Wuji almost cursed out loud. He pointed at Yunxing and said, "Yan Yun, you are slandering us. My Grand Emperor City has never plundered a single piece of purple gold ore. What are your intentions for slandering my Grand Emperor City?" "Enough." The hidden prince's cold eyes narrowed, appearing very impatient. He was not here to listen to a confrontation. No matter who stole the remaining purple gold ore, the Zhou State and Tang Yuan broke the alliance first. My later Qin must have a share of the loot. Since the Zhou State's emperor has personally come, then this crown prince will ask one thing. Is Zhou State handing over the ore or not? When had the Zhou State's emperor been questioned like this? Even if the later Qin's emperor personally came, the Zhou State's emperor might not lower his voice. He was immediately enraged. "Duguxiu, you are only the later Qin's crown prince. What qualifications do you have to negotiate with this emperor? With the 200,000 allied troops of my later Qin and Tang Yuan, we have already arrived at the southern border of Zhou State. If the Zhou State's emperor is not willing to hand over the ore, we must fight this battle." 200,000 troops. The Zhou State's emperor's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, he couldn't help but panic. In these years, the Zhou State's generals had withered, and Yun Songlong had just resigned from the military. If this battle really started, the Zhou State wouldn't be fully prepared. Tang Yuan and the later Qin soldiers would be like wolves and tigers. The possibility of victory was extremely low. Thinking of this, the Zhou State's emperor's expression softened. He was an ingrate and knew how to observe people's expressions. He was like this when he was a prince, and he was still like this now. "Hidden prince, there must be a misunderstanding. If you don't believe me, I can order someone to take you to the smelter to check. My Zhou State really only obtained a quarter of the purple gold ore." The Zhou State's emperor's words were already filled with anxiety. When the Zhou State's officials saw this, including Yunba and the others, they all felt dissatisfied. In the eyes of the generals, the Zhou State's emperor's humble appearance could be said to be extremely cowardly. Yunxing couldn't understand. She faintly felt that the whole thing was very wrong. Could it be that after those mysterious people used the magic array to transfer the purple gold ore, something else happened? Thinking of the magic array in the mining area that suddenly lost its effect overnight, it seemed that this matter was really a bit strange. Yunxing's heart skipped a beat. She glanced at Yi Baiming, only to see him smiling and throwing her a coquettish glance. Could it be? "Your Highness, why don't you listen to this official's words?" Tian Kezi, who hadn't spoken since he entered the room, suddenly spoke at this time. "Master Tian, if you have something to say, just say it." The hidden prince was still very respectful towards Tian Kezi. Tian Kezi was the later Qin's martial saint. In later Qin, he was the head of the later Qin's #1 martial arts hall, the 7 Stars Martial Arts Hall. When the hidden prince was young, he had learned combat skills in the 7 Stars Martial Arts Hall. This official thinks that when the 3 countries fought, blood would flow like rivers and the people would be plunged into misery and suffering. Later Qin, Zhou State, and Tang Yuan 8 years ago, for the sake of that purple gold or vein, the border area was filled with starving people. Every time this official thinks of that miserable scene, this official feels endless heartache. Tian Kezi's voice was full of emotion. From his appearance, it seemed that he wasn't a martial artist, but a great scholar who worried about the country and the people. Yunba cursed in his heart as he listened. Tian Kezi had a good reputation outside, but he was actually a hypocrite. Yunba despised people like him the most. However, his rash words already vaguely made Yunba have a bad feeling. However, if Zhou State wins, later Qin will no longer pursue the whereabouts of the purple gold or vein. The Emperor of Zhou State and the Hidden Prince had no objections to this decision. The arrival of this battle between two peak martial sages meant that Yunba's 60th birthday banquet had come to an end. The guests discussed animatedly. Tomorrow morning, Zhou State would definitely be in an uproar. Yunba, this time, Zhou State's honor and disgrace will be shouldered by you alone. As I am busy with government affairs in the palace, I will not be able to free myself for today's banquet. Here is a 500-year-old blood ginseng. I will give it to Yunba to nourish yourself. After the Hidden Prince and the others left, the Emperor of Zhou State asked for Yunba's well-being and ordered someone to give him a blood ginseng. A moment ago, he had ignored the Yun residents. Now, he was asking for Yunba's well-being. The Emperor of Zhou State was indeed a two-faced villain. Yunxing watched from the side and sneered in her heart. However, compared to the Night Fox, the Emperor of Zhou State was more hypocritical. If Yunba were to lose this competition, what Yunsheng was thinking was also what everyone in the Yun residence was thinking. Yun Canglang had been silent since the incident. Yun Cangxue pretended that she wasn't feeling well and didn't even see the guests out. She left the aftermath to Uncle Yun and left first. Zhonli and the others were also sent to the door. Uncle Yun hesitated for a moment and suddenly called out to Yunxing. "Young miss, please wait. This old servant has something to discuss with you." Yunxing walked to the side. Uncle Yun looked anxious. "Young miss, you must persuade old master. He can't compete with Tian Kezi." "Uncle Yun, why do you say that? Do you think that old General Yun can't defeat Tian Kezi? Even if his cultivation has declined due to old age, his martial realm should be higher than Tian Kezi's." Yunxing sensed that something was wrong. She looked at Uncle Yun's expression and saw that he was worried. She had noticed that Yunba had already quit drinking. He didn't touch a drop of wine at the birthday banquet. According to her earlier instructions, even if Yunba's cultivation declined, it would take at least a few years or even close to 10 years. "Young miss, ever since you diagnosed old master last time, this old servant has been monitoring him. But recently, when this old servant sparred with old master, I found that old master's strength has declined. Can you diagnose old master's body and see what's wrong with it?" Uncle Yun originally didn't want to disclose this matter, but if Yunba was going to compete with Tian Kezi, then Yunba's strength would become a problem. "I'm afraid that even if I'm willing to check, old General Yun won't appreciate it." Yunxing sighed. Divine Dr. Yun. Xia Wenxiu, who had left the Yun residence with Yunxing and the others, turned back. "You should take a look at old General Yun. I've divined for him. He will face a bloody disaster in the near future." "Young Master Ming, how could you?" Yu Ji and Yu Mo's expressions changed. How could young Master Ming say the results of her divination? This was divulging heavenly secrets and was very disadvantageous for young Master Ming. Xia Wenxiu originally only wanted to give Yunxing a hint, but who knew that the Dark Prince and Tian Kezi would suddenly appear? "It's you, I remember you. You're the girl who stole our carriage. Good, nothing good happens every time we meet you. Last time." Yu Ji sized up Yunxing and was shocked. This female sorcerer was the female sorcerer they met 2 years ago. After not seeing her for more than 2 years, her appearance had changed quite a bit. What was even more shocking was her strength. Yu Ji and Yu Mo both discovered that Yunxing, who was just an ordinary sorcerer 2 years ago, was now a master sorcerer. In 2 years, she had broken through 2 magic realms. Even in the temple, people couldn't help but raise their eyebrows at such a cultivation level. Yuji, shut up. Xia Wenchu's expression hardened. Yuji rarely saw young Master Ming get angry, so he blamed Yunxing even more. However, Yuemo glanced sideways at Yunxing. If he didn't remember wrongly, young Master Ming had done something that went against his usual behavior because of her. Thank you for your reminder, Xia Wenchu. I'll remember this favor. After hearing Xia Wenchu's words, Yunxing also knew that Yunba's body might really have some hidden dangers. She had to carefully examine him. Chapter 397. Yunxing and Uncle Yun returned to the Yun residence. Inside the residence, the birthday banquet had been dismissed, and the servants were cleaning the courtyard in 2s and 3s. The people of the Yun family had already disappeared. Yunxing followed Uncle Yun all the way to Yunba's courtyard. The Yun residence was spacious, but there were few people in recent years, so the courtyards of the young masters and misses were all empty. Yunba was born a general, so the courtyard was quite simple, but there were a few tall broad-leaved parasol trees planted in it. When Yunxing entered, she happened to hear Yun Sanglong persuading Yunba. Do you think I can't beat Tian Keizi? Humph, 8 years ago, he was already no match for me. 8 years later, he is still no match for me. She heard Yunba's voice as soon as she entered. Uncle Yun, why did you bring her here? Humph, didn't someone say that he would never step into the Yun residence in this lifetime? When Yunba saw Yunxing and Uncle Yun walk in, there was a touch of joy in his old eyes, but then he turned his head away awkwardly. He looked like a child who was quarreling with his friends. Yunxing muttered in her heart, this old man is really getting worse and worse. Father, Xing is already here. Why do you have to say such angry words to her? If you really make her leave in anger, I'm afraid you won't be able to sleep all night. Yun Sanglong was very puzzled by his father's childish behavior as he grew older. He had heard from Yunxing that Yunba had damaged his cultivation in order to save him, so it would be difficult for him to improve his martial arts realm in these years. Just now, he had also carefully observed Tian Keizi. The other party's eyes were bright, and his forehead was very full. Tian Keizi was more than 10 years younger than Yunba, and he was the martial sage worshipped by the later Qin royal family. These years, he must have been well taken care of, so his cultivation would only improve. In this way, it was hard to say who would win. I did say that I won't enter the Yun residence in this lifetime, but I said that I won't enter as a descendant of the Yun family. Today, I'm here as a doctor. Old General, you're going to represent Zhou State in the martial sage competition in a few days. Since the reason for this competition is the purple gold vein, I'll reluctantly do a physical examination for you. Yunxing had been in contact with Yunba for quite some time now. She was already immune to this old man's poisonous tongue and provocation. What medical examination? The number of times I've killed enemies on the battlefield is more than the number of times you've eaten in your entire life. Why do I always need a doctor to examine me? I'm not that refined. Yunba fumed. You're not going to get checked. Don't tell me you're suffering from some kind of geriatric disease. Are you afraid of being found out and embarrassing? Yunxing countered. As expected, Yunba became anxious after hearing her words. Who said that this old man has geriatric disease? This old man eats 3 bowls of rice every meal. If you want to check, then so be it. I'm not afraid of you. Yunba said as he sat down. Yunxing stepped forward and began to examine him. After a round of examination, Yunxing didn't find anything out of the ordinary. How is it? This old man's body is very good. I can cripple that guy Tian Kz with a single punch. He dared to behave atrociously at this old man's birthday banquet. This time, this old man will definitely make those old fellows from later Qin and Tang Yuan suffer a double loss. Yunba was extremely pleased with himself. The examination isn't over yet. What's there to be proud of? Yunxing was annoyed. She pressed down on Yunba's wrist with the back of her hand. If there was nothing wrong with Yunba's body, there shouldn't be any problems with the competition. But what should she say about a bloody disaster? Her brows twitched, and the jade marrow technique in her body quietly entered Yunba's body. The jade marrow technique in Yunxing's body was a Taoist technique. It was used to cultivate one's body and mind. It was the best way to use it to nourish one's body. At the same time, it also gave Yunxing the sharpest sense of touch. Yunba's cultivation was very high. The moment the strange power in Yunxing's body entered his body, the fighting aura in his body immediately reacted. What kind of skill is this, little girl? It's not fighting aura, nor is it sorcery. Yunba quickly discovered that his fighting aura had changed from its initial irritable state to a peaceful state. It actually automatically gave way to the jade marrow technique in Yunxing's body. Yunxing's jade marrow technique circulated all over Yunba's body. His muscles, blood, dantian, Yunxing's expression changed slightly. She retracted her finger as if it had been pricked by a needle. Inside Yunba's body, the change in her expression was very subtle, but it didn't escape the eyes of the three people present. Yun Songlong understood Yunxing's personality very well. This girl was the calmest. Last time, even when she was treating his hand, she was still calm. But just now, her expression changed. How is it? Yun Songlong hurriedly asked. Little girl, there's no need to act mysterious. Just tell me whether it's good or bad. This old man can take it. Yunba saw the change in Yunxing's expression. This competition cannot be carried out. Yunxing also knew that it was useless to hide anything in front of Yunba. She might as well get straight to the point. Why can't it be carried out? There's nothing wrong with this old man's body. If he hadn't seen Yunxing's medical skills with his own eyes, Yunba would have immediately turned and left. There's nothing wrong with your body, but this competition cannot be carried out. In other words, there's nothing wrong with a normal person. But if the opponent is Tian Kezi, then it's a different matter. Yunxing frowned. Old general, there's something wrong with your blood. You can't carry out Beast Blood Berserk. Beast Blood Berserk was the ultimate way for a martial practitioner to unleash their potential. Martial practitioners were different from magicians and summoners. They didn't have heaven-defying magic, nor did they have summoned beasts to assist them. Their only advantage was that during the process of advancing in the martial realm, they had fused with the blood of countless beasts, forming a tyrannical physique. When Yunxing was examining Yunba's body just now, she discovered that his body's condition had indeed improved compared to a few months ago. This should be because Yunba had stopped drinking. But when she used the jade marrow technique to examine him further, she discovered that there was something wrong with Yunba's blood. Yunxing could feel that as soon as Yunba's blood came into contact with internal energy, it would become abnormally active. It was like a river after a rainstorm, aggressive and aggressive. Under such circumstances, if Yunba mobilized all the fighting aura in his body, once he was injured, it was very likely that his blood would flow in reverse and eventually break out of his body. Yun Songlong and Uncle Yun were astonished. Little girl, what do you mean by that? What's wrong with this old man's blood? Yunba was a martial saint. In his life, every time he broke through in the martial realm, he would undergo a beast blood fusion. His last beast blood fusion was when he killed a commander-level demonic beast. After fusing with its blood, he advanced to martial saint. Without beast blood berserk, this meant that Yunba was bound to lose this competition. Chapter 398. When experts fought, especially martial saints, how could they not go berserk at the end of the battle? Yunba had also gone berserk at the last moment to fight Tian Kz to a draw. Yunba's tall back trembled slightly when he found out that he couldn't go berserk. Although he still didn't believe it, Yunxing's confident tone made him lose his confidence. He recalled that he had not undergone beast blood berserk transformation for the past 8 years or so. Other than the fact that it was hard to find an opponent in Zhou state and that no one could provoke him to go berserk, the other reason was that berserk was very harmful to one's body. Especially when one's martial realm was higher, they wouldn't be able to use battle qi for a certain period of time after going berserk. Are you sure? Why can't you go berserk? Yun Songlang's face was also anxious. He was a martial practitioner and understood that if Tian Kz, who had gone berserk, went berserk against Yunba, who couldn't go berserk, Yunba would lose without a doubt. I'm sure. As for the cause of this phenomenon, I can't do anything for now. Yun Sheng was perplexed. She was sure that Yunba didn't show any signs of being poisoned, nor did he have any internal injuries. It was just that the blood in his body was very strange. For the time being, she couldn't think of any solution to this problem. If she had discovered this earlier, she might have been able to find a solution. But Yunba and Tian Kz were going to fight in 10 days. It was already too late. Xing'er, you must have a solution. You can even cure second uncle's hand, can't you? Yun Songlang begged Yun Xing. He already believed Yun Xing's words. Yunba, who usually liked to argue with Yun Xing, didn't say a word at this moment. His expression was gloomy as he sat on the armchair. Uncle Yun couldn't help but advise, Master, just take it as this old servant begging you. It's only a competition, you should. Yunba smiled, his voice carrying some fatigue. Yun Song, don't you understand? The Yun residence is already in a difficult situation. Yun Xing was silent. Yun Songlang's eyes darkened, and Uncle Yun's old eyes couldn't help but moisten. Everyone in the room understood that this battle did not only concern Yunba's reputation, nor did it concern the ownership of a quarter of the purple gold mine. It also concerned the lives of hundreds of people in the Yun residence. The actions of the Emperor of Zhou state these days had made it clear that he intended to deal with the residents of Yun. It was only because of Yunba's existence that he did not take action. If Yunba couldn't even defend the glory of a martial saint, then what was the point of keeping the Yun residence? Little girl, let me ask you one more time. If I insist on going berserk with the beast blood, what will the result be? Yunba raised his head, his eyes filled with determination. Ever since his wife died more than 20 years ago, he had not remarried and lived alone in the huge courtyard. In the courtyard, the red lanterns used at the birthday banquet swayed in the night wind. Yunba walked out of the courtyard alone. He opened his arms and looked at his palms. Compared to the past, his hands had aged quite a bit. Yunba's figure flashed and he had already rushed out of the courtyard. Who's there? The hidden guards hiding in the courtyard of the Yun residence were alarmed. It's me. You don't have to follow me. This old man is going out for a walk. After Yunba finished speaking, his voice had already become one with the night, disappearing into the boundless night. The streets of the Jade capital were already empty. Yunba walked along the long street until he reached the little Xiantong. He did not make a sound and did not alarm anyone in the medical hall. He entered the courtyard of the medical hall and walked into an unlocked room. This was a narrow but tidy room. There were only some simple furniture inside and a person was lying on the bed. Within the icy blue sleeping cloud dream magic formation, Yun Songhai was as silent as he had been for countless days and nights in the past. He seemed to be sleeping quietly, without making a sound. Yunba walked around the head of the bed and sat on the side. He looked at the person on the bed who had once made him furious and was also the son he was most proud of in his life. One was lying quietly, the other was sitting without making a sound. Unknowingly, most of the night had passed. No one knew that in the past few months, Yunba would come to the little sea Antong every other day. He would sit there for 3 to 4 hours, from midnight to dawn. Chapter 399. Unbeknownst to the people in the medical hall, Yunba sat beside the magic formation and scrutinized Yun Songhai. After finding out about Yun Xing's background, he went around and found out about Yun Songhai's whereabouts. When he saw Yun Songhai in this state for the first time, Yunba almost couldn't accept it. He even had the urge to beat Yun Songhai awake. However, when he came into contact with Yun Songhai's ice-cold hands and feet and his almost still breathing, Yunba shrank back. However, tonight, Yunba was a little different. "Songhai, I'm afraid that I won't be able to come and see you in the future." He sat for a moment and said, "You are much more capable than your old man. You raised a good daughter. It's a pity that I won't have the chance to see her grow up, get married, and have children. You have to work harder and wake up. As long as you wake up, I won't chase you out of the house anymore." At this point, Yunba couldn't continue. He stood up abruptly and looked back at the firstborn, who was still unconscious in the magic circle. Then, he walked out sadly. When Yunba walked out of the house, the Yun Dreamy slumber magic formation shone brightly with blue light. Yun Songhai, who had been unconscious for many days, suddenly had a trace of crystal at the corner of his eyes. A drop of hot tear slid down from the corner of his eye. A day later, Uncle Yun indeed followed Yun Xing's instructions and delivered the soup that Yun Sangxue had brewed. After Yun Xing checked it, she found that there was nothing wrong with the soup. The remaining 2 days were the same. Uncle Yun secretly ordered Yun Sangxue's maidservant to leave a portion of the soup, but she didn't find anything. Until the day before the competition, Yun Xing checked Yun Sangxue's soup one last time, but she still didn't find any clues. Tomorrow was the day of the competition between Tian Kezi and Yunba. The news had already spread throughout the entire Jade capital. As the Great Zhou dynasty worshipped martial arts, the commoners of the Great Zhou dynasty looked forward to such competitions. However, the Jade capital was not Hunting Citadel after all. The commoners could not afford the tickets to the Hunting Citadel's arena. This time, it was a competition between 2 martial sages of the Great Zhou dynasty. Furthermore, it was the Great Zhou's archenemy, Ho Qin. All the commoners of Jade capital fell into an unprecedented passion. In the city, many bets had already been set up. They were betting on the battle between the martial saints of the 2 countries. If the Emperor of Zhou State hadn't had the foresight to hold the competition in the Imperial Palace, just the tickets alone would have been a sizable income. But this time, Yun Xing had no intention of using this competition to make a killing. She was still worried about Yunba's health. "Yun Xing, we have a way to sneak into the Imperial Palace. Do you want to watch the competition with us?" Gufeng and Qi went to the medicine hall to find Yun Xing. Although the competition this time was held in the Imperial Palace, the Emperor of Zhou State still invited some of the nobles and members of the imperial family to watch the competition. In the Yun residence, only direct blood relatives could watch the competition. Yun Xing hadn't returned to her family, so she shouldn't be able to enter the Imperial Palace. Qi, on the other hand, was a member of Wanlong Gambling House, so he was able to get a few places to enter the palace. Wanlong Gambling House is also participating in this bet, right? What are the odds? Yun Xing asked casually as she fiddled with the medicine in her hands. In the past, Yun Xing couldn't help but join in the fun, but this time, most people are betting that old General Yun will win. We also joined in the fun and bet a little. "Yun Xing, don't worry. We all support old General Yun," Gufeng said. The citizens of Zhou State naturally supported Yunba, but Yunxing knew that Yunba's chances of winning this time weren't high. However, she couldn't say too much about this matter. But last night, there was a bet of unknown origin that Tian Kazi would win. The amount was as much as 100,000 purple gold coins, Qi interrupted. When Yunxing heard this, she was careless and the soup bowl fell to the ground. The sharp shards cut her hand. Hey, Yunxing, why are you so clumsy? I said that person's head must have been kicked by a mule. He actually bet on Tian Kazi to win. No matter how you look at it, old General Yun is more powerful than that guy called Tian Kazi. Besides, this is Zhou State's territory. If we each spit a mouthful of saliva, we can make those later Qin people suffer. Gufeng helped Yunxing clean up in a flurry. Hey, Yunxing, what medicine is in your bowl? Why did it become like this when it was stained with blood? Gufeng looked at the broken bowl and found that Yunxing's blood had already turned the color of ink. He knew that Yunxing liked to fiddle with strange things. Yunxing and Qi lowered their heads to look. How could it be? That bowl contained the leftover soup that Yun Cangxue had given to Yunba under Uncle Yun's orders. That's the medicine that old General Yun has been taking recently. Yunxing looked at the blood that had changed color and felt a little puzzled. Why did the medicine change color when it was stained with blood? She had checked it earlier and found that there was no poison in the medicine. Why would old General Yun take this kind of medicine? Qi took a look and his expression changed slightly under the cloak. He squatted down and picked up the broken bowl. Little green. A small green snake slithered out from under his cloak. It slithered around the mouth of the bowl and flicked its tongue, making a hissing sound. What's wrong? Is there something wrong with the soup? But I've already checked it. Chapter 400. Amniotic fluid. Wasn't that the fluid that humans and magical beasts used to nourish their babies when they gave birth? Yunxing didn't understand. What did this have to do with Yunba's current condition? Is amniotic fluid fatal? Yunxing tried to recall. She had never heard of such a thing. Not under normal circumstances, but if it's mixed with blood, it will. The reason why I know amniotic fluid is fatal is because of Little Qing. Abandon rarely spoke about his and Little Qing's past. This was the first time he spoke about Little Qing in front of Yunxing and Gufeng. When Abandon was still a child, he was an orphan. One day, when he passed by a forest, he saw a dying giant snake. The snake's body was as thick as 2 buckets. The scales all over its body were like armor made by the best blacksmiths. Its eyes were the size of lanterns, and there was a small protrusion at the top of its head. It was a magical beast of unknown rank. If Abandon encountered such a magical beast on a normal day, he would only die. But that day, the giant snake Abandon encountered was already on its last breath. There was a bloody opening under the snake's abdomen. Blood gushed out endlessly like a fountain. When Abandon saw the giant snake, he was so frightened that he didn't dare to move. What puzzled him was that the giant snake wasn't like ordinary snakes that laid eggs. There was a lump of bloody flesh wriggling at the opening under its abdomen. Abandon boldly walked forward and saw the thing under the snake's abdomen clearly. As it turned out, the giant snake was a female snake that was giving birth. Because it was giving birth alone, it accidentally let the amniotic fluid in its body flow into its abdomen, causing a hemorrhage. Blood clots blocked the bottom of the giant snake's abdomen. The little snake was about to suffocate to death. At this point, the giant snake knew that it was not going to live. It hissed at Abandon. For some reason, the pleading look in the giant snake's eyes made Abandon feel sorry for it. He even forgot about his fear and walked forward to help the giant snake dig out the blood clot from its belly. It was also with Abandon's help that the thumb-sized snake finally came back to life. Unfortunately, the large snake could not stop bleeding and was unable to heal itself. In the end, it bled to death. That little snake that was abandoned and rescued was later Little Green. From then on, Abandon and Little Apple depended on each other for survival until Abandon was discovered by Teacher Mary and brought into the Royal Magic Academy. Hearing Chi's words, Yunxing suddenly recalled the news of a pregnant woman giving birth that she had heard on the internet before she transmigrated here. It was a very controversial news back then. The pregnant woman's condition was similar to what Abandon had said about the magical beast giving birth to the baby snakes. Yunxing, to tell you the truth, I only know that the amniotic fluid of magical beasts has such a harmful effect. I am not a doctor and do not know how to cure this amniotic fluid of magical beasts. Moreover, you said just now that the old general has unknowingly consumed this medicinal soup mixed with the amniotic fluid of magical beasts for 3 months. I am afraid that the amniotic fluid of magical beasts has already contaminated all the blood in his body. Abandon shook his head. Is there no way? Yunxing was still unwilling to give up. She had no clue at all. Yunba's blood must have been deeply contaminated. Let's not talk about how much battle chi he could still use. Regardless of how much fighting power he had, if it was in the modern world, she could use medical equipment to circulate his blood and replace it with new blood for a period of time. But in the boundless land, she simply did not have such means. Yunba would definitely not believe that the amniotic fluid of magical beasts was the real deal. But as long as he was not careful during the competition, he would be injured. Once he was injured, the consequences would be unimaginable. Moreover, Yunxing was already certain that Yun Sangxue must have colluded with the later Qin or even the people of the Grand Emperor city. That despicable person Tian Keizi would definitely catch Yunba's hidden danger during the competition. Oh right, Yunxing, you can ask the people in the Dharma Temple. Perhaps if there is no way with ancient medical skills, there might be a way with light magic. Gufing thought for a while and said somewhat guiltily, actually, there is a special purification spell in light magic. It's a pity that I am too useless. I am not good at light magic and can't help you. That's right, Gufeng. You reminded me. Yunxing recalled the light magic that Xia Wenqiu had used in front of her previously. That miraculous effect of reviving the dead. Perhaps Xia Wenqiu really had a way. Chapter 401. Xia Wenqiu was surprised that Yunxing had come in the middle of the night. Why are you looking for our Si Ming in the middle of the night? Yuemo had an ominous feeling when he saw Yunxing. Yuemo, don't talk too much. Bring me some tea. Xia Wenqiu smiled faintly when he thought that Yunxing would think of him when she was in trouble. Yunxing hid the fact that Yun Sangxue had poisoned Yunba and told him that Yunba might have been poisoned by the amniotic fluid of magical beasts. I didn't expect that the poison in old General Yun's body would be amniotic fluid of magical beasts. Amniotic fluid poison, I've also heard of it in the Zhao Ting. I just didn't think that it would be used on old General Yun. Xia Wenqiu muttered to himself. He was very surprised by Yunxing's discovery. I'll get straight to the point. I came here today to ask for your help. I heard that the Dharma Temple has a high-level light magic that can purify a person's body. I want to ask you. Yunxing hesitated for a moment, but still said it. Xia Wenqiu was startled when he heard it. I knew that nothing good would come out of you. Do you think that high-level light magic is like cabbage or radish that can be found everywhere? Our arbiter of fate can't use light magic casually, especially on people who are destined to die. Solitary Rain, who had just delivered the tea, immediately stomped his feet. Xia Wenqiu also revealed an awkward expression. Because light magic was too heaven-defying, it really couldn't be used casually. However, when he saw the pleading look on Yunxing's face, the rejection that was already at the tip of his tongue could not be said. Si Ming. This time, even Umo, who usually didn't speak much, spoke up to oppose Xia Wenchu's help. He and Umo both knew that Yunba's matter wasn't simple this time. Although they didn't know about the existence of the heavenly fate mirror, Elder Si Ming's letter had already stated that Yunba's death was destined to happen. Elder Si Ming had also warned that Xia Wenchu only needed to protect Zhou State's royal family and not interfere in other matters. Young Judge Ming had always obeyed Elder Judge Ming's words, but this time was an exception. First, Xiao Ximing ignored their persuasion and recklessly told Yunxing that when Yunba was going to face a bloody disaster, she had already revealed part of the heaven's secret. Revealing the heaven's secret, even if it was just a small part, would cause a backlash in the future. If young Master Ming were to help Yunba, it would be going against the will of the heavens. It would affect his future cultivation. Yu Ji and Umo didn't dare to think any further. At this moment, the two of them were somewhat resentful towards Yunxing. Although they were still young and didn't know much about the matters between men and women, they have already discovered that since young Master Ming pretended to be GMO and entered the little Xiantong, young Master Ming became somewhat different. In the past, young Arbiter Ming was a woman of few words, like an ice sculpture. However, the current young Master Ming was clearly much more amiable. Just like his name, a smile would appear on his face from time to time. This was especially true for this female magus called Yunxing. When she appeared, young Master Ming's gaze towards her became as gentle as a ball of cotton, causing the two of them to whisper to each other. Disaster. He was a living source of calamity. Yunxing naturally didn't know that because of her appearance, the hearts of the two little magi in the Dharma temple had been turned upside down. In Xia Wenchu's heart, how could it not be the same? He also knew that he could openly reject Yunxing. Since Yunba's death was shown by the heaven's mandate mirror, it was destined. No one could change it. However, if Yunba died, she would probably be very sad. Seeing the difficult expressions on the faces of the people in the Dharma temple, Yunxing thought that Xia Wenchu didn't want to harm his own magic power to save Yunba. Xia Ximing, I won't let you waste your energy for nothing. If you save old General Yun, I will hand over the secret method to refine the tribute of the moon god. I believe that this secret method can raise the grade of the magic medicine in the Dharma temple by at least 1 grade. When Yunxing said this, Yu Ji and Umo, who were originally glaring angrily at Yunxing, were shocked. The two of them pointed at Yunxing and stammered, "What did you say? You were the one who refined the high-grade magic medicine, tribute of the moon god." It was no wonder that Yu Ji and Umo were so shocked. In the past half a year, the appearance of this high-grade magic medicine on the mainland had caused almost all the magi in the Dharma temple to be in a terrible fix. All the magus apothecaries had tried to refine the tribute of the moon god, but even the most skilled magus apothecaries in the Dharma temple had failed. "Miss Yun, you don't have to do that," Xia Wenchu hurriedly said. He didn't know why, but he hated interacting with Yunxing in this way of bargaining. He only wanted to help her because he wanted to make her happy. He didn't know when it had started, but it might have been during his time in Little Xiantong, but he had already gotten used to it. Every evening, Yunxing stood in the medical hall and flipped through the daily accounts. Sometimes she frowned, sometimes she smiled faintly. The 2 dimples at the side of her mouth would cause him to fall into a daze. Ah! Umo almost spilled the tea that was about to be served. Had Si Ming gone crazy? That was the tribute of the moon god. It was a high-grade magic medicine that could change a person's magic constitution and turn a good-for-nothing into a magus. If they could unravel the secret of this magic medicine, it would undoubtedly be extremely beneficial to the Dharma temple. Xia Wenchu waved his hand unhappily. "It's not that I don't want to save old General Yun, but just using light purification magic won't be able to cure the poison in old General Yun's body. Xiao Wenqiu had heard from Yunxing that Yunba had misused the amniotic fluid of magical beasts for 3 months. He was well versed in medicine and had a good understanding of the human body's condition. He knew that 3 months was neither too long nor too short a period of time. It was enough for the poison to seep into Yunba's internal organs. Even with high-level purification magic, it could only remove the amniotic fluid on the surface. But if they wanted to completely remove the amniotic fluid in Yunba's bones, internal organs and blood, magic alone would not be enough. What else do you need? I will definitely think of a way to prepare it. Yunxing had the everlasting Chamber of Commerce behind her. She believed that even if she couldn't cure Yunba's poison in a short period of time, she could definitely use the everlasting Chamber of Commerce's power to find other ingredients. But what Yunxing didn't expect was that the one that could cure Yunba's poison was actually, I'm afraid that you won't be able to prepare that item. That item is the fairy clan's water of life. The water of life can only be found in the depths of the immortal residence's sacred mountain of the fire fairies. The water of life is very precious. Even the fairy clan can't easily use it. And everyone knows that the fairy clan of the immortal residence hates humans the most. Also, looking at the time, it's already too late to go back and forth between the immortal residence and Zhou State. Xia Wenqiu sighed. What happened to that damned little wild cat? Why didn't she look for him? Why did she look for Xia Wenqiu? She had only met him a few times and was always pretending to be friendly. What was there to look for? Night Fox, if you want to play chess, go back to your room. Yunxing looked at his constipated face and tried to recall how she had offended him recently. She was upset and did not have time to guess what was on his mind. Why did you look for Xia Wenqiu? Yi Baiming asked gloomily. How did you know I went to look for him? I looked for him to ask about some medical matters. You don't understand. Yunxing huffed. She looked at Yi Baiming and her expression darkened. He was being despised. The little wildcat dared to despise him. Yi Baiming's heart ached at the thought of her and Xia Wenqiu discussing medical issues in such a lovey-dovey manner. Yi Baiming suddenly grabbed Yunxing's hand and pulled her into his arms. Yunxing jumped in fright. She did not know what was wrong with Yi Baiming. His gray eyes darkened. Yi Baiming stared at Yunxing. His handsome face was only a few inches away from Yunxing. The two of them were so close that they could feel each other's breath on their faces. This prince forbids you from having any more contact with Xia Wenqiu. It looks like I'm not good enough as your retainer. From now on, I'll really have to follow you 12 hours a day. Yi Baiming's domineering tone made Yunxing's heart beat faster. She forcefully pushed Yi Baiming, but found that this guy's body was really hard. He was like a wall and she could not move him at all. Yi Baiming, speaking of which, were you behind the purple gold mine incident? Yunxing glared at him. She thought about it and felt that Yi Baiming's sudden appearance during the purple gold mine incident was not the right time. In addition, he was so black-bellied. If Tang Yuan's Li Shao was stolen by someone else, then the first person to suspect would definitely be Yi Baiming. Yi Baiming smiled wickedly and did not answer. He lowered his head and pressed his forehead against Yunxing's neck. He shifted Yunxing into a more comfortable position and held her in his arms. He also did not sleep the entire night, but when he smelled Yunxing's pleasant medicinal fragrance, his originally depressed mood improved a lot. It really was you. Aren't you embarrassed? You caused the trouble and you want the Yun residents to take the blame for you. That Tian Kazi should be looking for you to compete. Yunxing was not in a good mood. She thought about how she had worked so hard and was almost eaten by Bian, but only managed to get a quarter of the purple gold mine. Yi Baiming had pretended to be a pig to eat a tiger and took half of the mine. Her heart was extremely unbalanced. Why are you being so calculative? What is this prince's is yours? Yi Baiming pressed his nose against Yunxing's neck. Yunxing's skin was very good and the fragrance on her body was different from the cosmetics of other women. Only the heavens knew that he loved the feeling of holding this little wild cat in his arms. Perhaps it was because the two of them were used to dual cultivating magic, but Yunxing's resistance to Yi Baiming's intimate actions had lessened. Yunxing did not understand at first, but when she thought about it again, why did it sound so ambiguous? It sounded like, were you born in the year of the dog? Don't keep scratching my neck. Since what is yours is mine, then take out half of the purple gold mine. In any case, you are a nosy prince and don't need money. Unlike me, who has a hunting squad and a medical center, everything is a bottomless pit. Yunxing felt a tickle on her neck and unhappily pushed Yi Baiming's face away. Yi Baiming had already expected her reaction and nimbly avoided her hand. He pressed her wrist under his armpit and continued to hug Yunxing tightly. In front of a martial artist, a magician's skills could not be more useless. Yunxing wailed endlessly. She really wanted to give Yi Baiming a freezing spell and freeze him until his hands and feet were crippled. Unfortunately, she did not dare. To be honest, ever since Yunxing met Yi Baiming, she had never truly seen through his cultivation. Whether it was a martial artist or a magician, Yi Baiming would never reveal his true abilities. Yunxing only knew that his strength was very high. After all, just by looking at his soul, Yi Baiming's soul was at least twice as big as hers. Wait a few more days, this prince will naturally give it to you. Don't worry, this time, old General Yun will be fine. When Yi Baiming saw Yunxing's angry appearance, his gray eyes softened. Asterisk asterisk thank you silently for the tip asterisk asterisk. Chapter 403. Yunxing had lost a lot of weight recently. Yi Baiming felt a little heartache as he held her in his arms. His little wild cat had been running around and was most worried about the Yun residence. No matter how much Yunxing disliked the Yun residence, she was still of the Yun residence's bloodline. This was something that couldn't be changed. As long as Yunxing wasn't willing, he definitely wouldn't let the Yun residence collapse. What are you saying? Could it be that you have full confidence that this competition? No, you don't even know that old General Yun was poisoned. Actually, I went to find Xia Wenqiu yesterday because of this. When Yunxing heard this, she couldn't help but stop joking around. There was only one person who dared to say that he would give her whatever she wanted in Zhou State, and that was the Zhou State's emperor. However, the Yi Baiming that Yunxing knew wasn't someone who would easily make promises. Once he opened his mouth, it meant that he had full confidence. It was the amniotic fluid of a magical beast, right? The poison in old General Yun's body, and it was Yun Sangxue who poisoned him, Yi Baiming said slowly. How do you know? You went to the clinic and saw the decoctions. Yunxing became nervous. Little wild cat, you are very clever, but still a little naive. Do you think that you can solve today's matter by yourself? Do you know why Yun Sangxue did that? Because Tang Yu was taken away by someone. The person who took away Tang Yu was the Bloody Hand Tycoon controlled by Xuanwu Ji. Yi Baiming's face was unfathomable, as if nothing could be hidden from him. In just one night, Yi Baiming had already found out that Tang Yu was taken away by a group of unknown people a few months ago. Yun Sangxue must have been controlled by others because of Tang Yu. In terms of medical skills, Yunxing could be considered the best in Zhou State. She was also very smart and was the calmest woman Yi Baiming had ever met. Sometimes, Yi Baiming would even associate Yunxing with his mother, Empress Li. Of all the women Yi Baiming had seen in his life, his mother, Empress Li, was the one who left the deepest impression on him. Not only was she unparalleled in beauty, but she was also better at scheming than others. But for a peerless beauty like Empress Li, she had lost to love. For the sake of Zhou State's emperor, a man who didn't love her, her reputation was ruined, and she ended up without a corpse. Every time he thought of this, Yi Baiming couldn't help but feel indignant, and his gray eyes flashed with anger. He turned his head to look at the person in his arms. After learning the reason for Yun Cangshue's betrayal, Yunxing fell into deep thought. She didn't notice Yi Baiming sizing her up. Yi Baiming carefully looked at Yunxing. From her dark red petal-like lips to her delicate oval face and pitch-black eyes, he didn't miss anything. When Yunxing was thinking seriously, she exuded an aura that didn't match her age. That aura made Yi Baiming feel like he couldn't take his eyes off her. Yunxing was still young. In terms of appearance, she couldn't be compared to Empress Li, who used to be the most beautiful woman in Zhou State. She didn't know anything about the four arts, but her medical skills and understanding of magic were incomparable to Empress Li's. Today, for example, even though she knew such a big thing, if it were anyone else, they would probably have panicked. However, Yunxing was able to calm down and think about the whole story. Yi Baiming had a feeling that Yunxing was growing at an astonishing speed. As long as she was given enough time, she would transform into a woman who was even more dazzling than his mother. She was Yunxing, not Empress Li. And he wasn't the emperor of Zhou State. He would never let her down in this life. When Yi Baiming's spiritual soul entered Yunxing's body, he already knew that this little woman was tightly bound to him in the past, present, and future. However, if she were to discover the obstacles in front of them one day, would she still be like today, leaning in his arms and not moving at all? Yi Baiming's heart was filled with thoughts. Yunxing was also filled with thoughts. In terms of scheming for benefits, she was indeed not as good as Yi Baiming, who was born in a royal family since he was young. She never thought that Yun Cangxue would be so rebellious. Compared to the father, the son was more important in the end. Night Fox, can you do me a favor? Yunxing looked up. She knew that Yi Baiming knew much more than her. She was a typical modern woman. Due to the early death of her parents, she had been taking care of herself since she was young. After coming to the Boundless Land, due to Yun Sanghai's deliberate training, she had always been taking care of herself and never asked others to help her. This was the first time she had asked someone for help. Her show of weakness made Yi Baiming raise his eyebrows. The smile on his face deepened. Yunxing asked him for help. Did this mean that she had already opened her heart and started to accept him? Yunxing was originally very smart. It was just that because of the environment she was born in, she was not good at scheming. However, after she recognized the environment she was in, she immediately made a decision. Whether it was Xian Wuji, the Dark Prince, or Tian Keizi, did these people really think that she, Yunxing, and the entire Yun residence could be bullied? If they had come in the open, Yunxing might not have done anything in secret. However, since they had used all kinds of methods, how could she, Yan Yunxing, let them play tricks like this? I'm at your disposal. Yi Baiming saw a hint of determination in Yunxing's eyes. He knew that the little wild cat had been enlightened. Yunxing thought about it again and quickly connected the whole thing together. Tell me the whereabouts of the Bloody Hand Tycoon. Yunxing almost gritted her teeth as she said this sentence. Yi Baiming raised his eyebrows. You want to find the Bloody Hand Tycoon? Those who come out to make a living will eventually have to pay. Yunxing's eyebrows were filled with a murderous aura. Why should I dirty my hands? If you don't like it, after tomorrow, there will be no more Bloody Hand Tycoon in this world. Yi Baiming pursed his thin lips and held Yunxing's hand. The size of a man's and a woman's hands were different. Yi Baiming stroked Yunxing's hand. Her hand could be used to save people. As for his hand, since it was already stained with blood, he did not mind staining it with more than 100 lives. If anyone dared to make his woman unhappy, he would make sure that they would not be able to rest in peace. Early in the morning, in a valley located dozens of miles northwest of Zhou State. It was at least half a month's journey from here to Jade Capital. The valley was filled with fog all day long. Once hunters and magical beasts entered the valley, they would not be able to walk out again. No one noticed that there was a magic array set up outside the valley. The grass and trees outside the valley looked very ordinary, but upon closer inspection, one would realize that these were all poisonous plants. The fog was also an illusion created by the magic array. This was the headquarters of the Bloody Hand Tycoon. Chapter 404. Blood Hand's main camp was located in this valley where there were few signs of human habitation. If a skilled magician managed to break through the misty magic formation outside and enter the depths of the valley, he would see many trench-like buildings built in the valley. Tang Yu had been locked up here for the past half a year. Although he was locked up, Tang Yu's life was not bad. At least in the eyes of young Master Tang, this life was 1,000 times better than the life in the Northwest Barracks. He was served by 2 delicate beauties. Every day, there was good wine and good meat, not a single thing was lacking. Tang Yu still did not know the origins of these people. He only knew that after being exiled by the military, he had been exposed to the elements all the way to the Northwest Barracks. He completely ignored Yunba's painstaking efforts to train him. After wailing and wailing for a few days, he realized that no one regarded him as the little young master of the Yun residence anymore. He completely gave up. He inwardly cursed Xianyu, who had died for no apparent reason. He was also angry at Yun Xing. Even his grandfather, Yunba, who had not helped him, was hated by him. One night, Tang Yu went to the toilet in the middle of the night and was knocked on the head. When he woke up, he realized that he had left the Northwest Barracks. At first, he was afraid, but when he realized that his life here was 1,000 times better than in the barracks, he felt at ease to live a life of luxury. However, he did not expect that such a good life would suddenly come to an end a few days ago. He roughly knew that the group who had captured him belonged to an organization called the Blood Hand Gang. The people here did not show their faces and were all dressed in red robes. Their skills were very high, and there were magicians and warriors among them. If he wanted to escape from these people, the chances of him escaping were 0. Usually, these people were only responsible for providing him with good wine and meat and did not make things difficult for him. However, 3 days ago, a red-robed man suddenly walked in with a fiendish expression. Without saying a word, they cut off Tang Yu's little finger. Tang Yu was so frightened that he fainted. When he woke up, he realized that the beauty was gone and he was locked in a small room. He did not know what had happened and cursed for an entire day, but no one paid him any attention. Around dawn, the door opened. A red-robed man walked in. Behind the red-robed man were 2 delicate beauties. When they saw Tang Yu, they warmly welcomed him. "You. What do you want?" Tang Yu did not have the ability to keep these beauties this time. He just wanted to leave this damned place as soon as possible. "Young Master Tang, there's no need to panic. You've been on tenterhooks all this while. But don't worry, you'll be able to leave in a few days." The red-robed man sneered. As long as the competition between Yunba and Tian Kezi ended, the Yun residents would lose all standing and reputation. At that time, Tang Yu would no longer have any value. The Bloody Hand Trenches people also promised Yun Sangxue that as long as the competition ended, they would release Tang Yu. A few days. How many days? Who ordered you to capture this young master? Tang Yu's fat face was pale with fright. He was originally a cowardly rat with a brain the size of a mung bean. After being frightened like this, there was only one name left in his mind. "All right, I know. It must be Yun Xing, right? You guys are all acting mysterious. You must be the hunters under that wretched girl in disguise. Tang Yu believed that he had a noble status and was quite popular in the Jade capital. After thinking about it, he could only think of Yun Sheng as his enemy. It must be because Yun Sheng wanted to acknowledge her ancestors and was afraid that he would steal her grandfather Yun Ba's favor. Therefore, she ordered people to capture him. Pfft! A burst of uncontrollable laughter came from above the house. Hearing the commotion, the Bloody Hand Trench's people were shocked. Who's there? On the roof, 3 people were standing. The Bloody Hand Trench was an extremely important stronghold of the Grand Emperor city on the Boundless Continent. Therefore, the valley where their base camp was located was well hidden, and there were layers upon layers of traps outside. The fact that someone was able to sneak in without them noticing shocked the red-robed leader, and he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. So there's really someone as stupid as a pig. Tang Yu, oh Tang Yu, if Yun Sheng wanted to harm you, you would have already died 1,000 times. The 3 men descended from the roof. These were 3 men with different styles. Anyone who saw them would remember them. The one who snickered just now was the man on the right. He had a dignified appearance and always had a kind smile on his face. He held a white jade bone fan in his hand. With such a configuration, he was just like a white-robed scholar. The man on the left was like an iron-faced soldier. He was not old, but his tyrannical battle chi was like a sword that had been sharpened for a long time. Once he made a move, it was earth-shattering. As for the man in the middle, the one that the red-robed man couldn't see through the most was the man in the middle. He should be the youngest of the 3. He looked to be around 15 or 16 years old, but he was the most good-looking of the 3. His pair of slightly upturned red phoenix eyes reflected a cold light in the morning light. He was not like the man on the right who liked to laugh, nor was he as cold as the man on the left. There were no magical waves on his body, nor was there any biting cold battle chi. However, just by standing there, he made people feel an unbearable pressure. It's you. Lord Baiming, Senior Brother Qing, Senior Brother Bu. When Tang Yu saw the 3 of them, it was as if he had seen his saviors. He shouted loudly for help. His eyes were more like a girl who had seen her sweetheart. How could there be any anticipation? Qing Bai shuddered and glared at Yi Baiming resentfully. It was all this kid's fault. Early in the morning, before the rooster crowed, he was dragged out of bed by Yi Baiming and thrown into a magical array in a daze. When he woke up, he found himself and Bujiuxiao in the western region of Zhou State. It would take at least 10 days to travel from Yujing to the western region of Zhou State, even with flying magical beasts. Yi Baiming, on the other hand, used a magical array of unknown attributes to bring him and Bujiuxiao thousands of miles to the west. When he woke up and asked around, he found out that Yi Baiming was actually looking for Tang Yu. He was really unlucky for 8 lifetimes. He, Qing Bai, never had the chance to be a hero saving a damsel in distress. How could he have the chance to save a fatso? F***ck off, who's your senior brother? When Qing Bai heard Tang Yu's voice, which was even more feminine than a girl's, he felt goosebumps all over his body. A trash who had been kicked out of the dojo half a month after joining dared to call him senior brother. Bloody tycoon. Bujiuxiao frowned unhappily. What he noticed were the people in red who were quickly gathering around him. If he was not wrong, these people were the infamous assassins of the Bloody Tycoon. However, when did Yi Baiming provoke this group of people, or? Bujiuxiao did not even bother to look at Tang Yu. This matter was related to the residents of Yun. Yi Baiming and the residents of Yun did not have much of a relationship. If there was a relationship, it would be because of Yun Xing. Chapter 405. Qing Bai glanced at Yi Baiming and then looked at Bujiuxiao, roaring sorrowfully, in this day and age, men are like clothes and women are like hands and feet. Baiming, you are not kind. Qingbai's appearance was clearly a naked accusation. His own woman was still comfortably staying in Jade Capital, yet he had pulled his two childhood friends to come to this kind of godforsaken place to fight to the death with someone. Yi Baiming's gray eyes turned and the corner of his mouth curled up with a hint of evilness, instantly making people dumbfounded. At that time, there was only one sentence in Tang Yu's mind: "Oh my God, a man can actually smile so beautifully." Yi Baiming spat out a sentence that was neither painful nor itchy. "Wrong, there is no way to compare. There are 4 brothers and only 1 woman." Qingbai's face instantly became that of a little wife, while Bujiuxiao helplessly shrugged his shoulders. Seeing the 3 of them singing the same tune and not putting the famous Blood Hand Tycoon in their eyes, the red-robed man was so angry that his teeth were about to shatter. "What's the point of saying so much? You are Zhou State's Baiming King, and you are Wuji's 3 talents that recently rose to prominence from Wushuan Limitless School. The most famous people on the continent were Wuji's 5 paragons, the 5 peerless geniuses of the 5 great countries. Wuji's 5 paragons had been famous for a long time, but in the past 2 years, the hottest newcomers in Zhou State were Wuji's 3 talents. If Wuji's 5 paragons were said to be famous because of their genius and illustrious background, then Wuji's 3 talents were famous for killing blood cloud beasts. However, because they were only moving around in Zhou State, the fame of Wuji's 3 talents was only spread in a small area. Blood Hand Tycoon had only heard of their reputation, but had never truly fought with them before. Seeing them today, he only felt that the 3 of them had first-class appearances, but in terms of strength, they were only a so-so. Since they came from Wushuan Limitless School, their strength naturally wouldn't be weak, but no matter what, they were just a group of teenage martial artists, and their cultivations were at most martial marquis. These assassins of the Blood Hand Trench, perhaps their martial realm cultivation could not compare to these 3, but they all lived their lives licking blood from the edge of the blade. When it came to a real fight, they believed that they would not lose to these 3 youngsters who looked good but were not of any use. It was also the red-robed man who had let down his guard. He had overlooked one thing. If the 3 people in front of him were really just martial arts practitioners, how could they have rushed here from the Jade Capital, which was thousands of miles away? "Brothers, capture the leader first. Capture Zhou State's Baiming King first." The red-robed leader was able to become the leader of the Bloody Hand Trench. Naturally, he had some skills. With a single glance, he recognized Bujiuxiao as the most powerful of Wuji's 3 prodigies, followed by Qingbai and Yi Baiming. However, Yi Baiming was the leader of the 3, so he made a prompt decision to capture Yi Baiming first. Within the Blood Hand Trench's main camp, there were still more than 200 people. More than 200 red-robed people, under the command of their leader, rushed over like a dense swarm of locusts. Tang Yu was so scared that she could not move. She hid to the side. Yi Baiming and the other 2, who were surrounded in the middle, did not react at all. "What are you waiting for? Let them see that the title of Wuji's 3 prodigies is not for nothing." Qingbai laughed. The 3 stood in a row, but no one was in a hurry to make a move. The 3 of them were about the same age and height, but at this moment, the 3 bursts of Duki that erupted from their bodies were completely different. The 3 bursts of Duki burst forth in an instant, like 3 peerless swords being unsheathed together. The Do Chi collided with each other like a flood. The entire valley seemed to have experienced a small-scale earthquake. Tang Yu, who was hiding to the side, only heard a series of crackling sounds. It was as if a string of firecrackers had suddenly been lit on the quiet street on New Year's Eve. However, the source of the firecrackers came from the joints of the 3 men in front of her. It was the sound of the exploding Duki flowing in all directions. It was September, and it was around sunrise. The weather was cool, but the 3 men were drenched in an instant. That was sweat. No, that was not sweat. Red liquid flowed down from the three men's skin. The red-robed men at the side looked at each other. The red-robed leader's face changed in shock. That was not sweat, that was beast blood. The three men had entered the beast blood frenzy state at the same time. Red beastly blood and sweat flowed out from the three men's bodies. The clothes on their upper bodies were torn apart. Like small green pythons, veins popped out. Their muscles bulged, emitting a terrifying aura. In just a moment, the three men, who were originally 1.8 meters tall, had undergone a terrifying transformation. Their height suddenly increased by 20 to 30 centimeters. Each of them looked like a small giant, at least 2 meters tall. Their facial features had also changed. Among them, Yi Baiming's beast blood frenzy state was the most shocking. A black gas circled around his body. His naked upper body was covered with a layer of strange black scales. He roared loudly, like a spring thunder. When the sound fell into the ears of the assassins of the Bloody Hand Trench, their eardrums buzzed. Some of the assassins with weaker cultivation actually bled from their ears, nose, and mouth under the roar. They fell to the ground instantly, their heart meridians broken on the spot. With a roar, he could break people's heart meridians. With such cultivation, he was definitely not a martial marquis. Could it be? Only then did the red-robed man know that the Lord Baiming he looked down on was actually a man. Zhou State, Yujing City, there was not only one. As if he had foreseen the result of the competition a few days later, the red-robed man only had one thought left. He had to escape. He had to tell the young city lord that the most terrifying person in Zhou State was not Yunba. However, in the next moment, he found that he could not move his hands and feet. Like a ghost, Yi Baiming killed his way out of the heavy encirclement. In an instant, he was in front of him. His hands covered with black scales grabbed the red-robed man's hands and feet. The red-robed man only felt that his limbs were making cracking sounds. He did not even have time to cry out. His body was as strong as a martial marquis. Even under the force of 1,000 kilograms, his body would not be damaged in the slightest. However, Yi Baiming's tyrannical strength tore his body into two halves. Red blood that was even redder than the red-robed man instantly dyed Yi Baiming's eyes red. Perhaps stimulated by the smell of blood, Yi Baiming's mind was scarlet. Countless broken limbs, a rain of blood, and minced flesh. The scene in the valley was too horrible to look at. Qingbai and Bu Jiuxiao had finished off more than half of the assassins of the Bloody Hand Trench. When they stopped, they found that Yi Baiming was strange. Not good. Jiuxiao, Baiming seems to be out of control. Qingbai looked at the corpses around them and then looked at Yi Baiming's crazy killing method. His heart trembled slightly. Chapter 406. According to their agreement, once they entered the Blood Hand Trench's camp, they would quickly enter the beast blood frenzy state and end the battle quickly. After all, there were more important things waiting for them in the Jade Capital. They had seen Yi Baiming enter a frenzied state after entering the beast blood frenzy state. Previously, when the three of them were killing blood cloud beasts, they had encountered commander-grade demonic beasts that were even more dangerous than the Blood Hand Trench. At that time, Qingbai and Bu Jiuxiao had encountered danger. It was Yi Baiming who entered the beast blood frenzy state at the last moment that saved the two of them. It was only then that the two of them knew that Yi Baiming could enter the beast blood frenzy state on his own even before the real beast blood fusion. Furthermore, Yi Baiming's beast blood frenzy state was different from that of ordinary warriors. Normally, after entering the beast blood frenzy state, the person would be weakened for half a month or even 3 months depending on their cultivation. However, Yi Baiming was different. Every time he entered the beast blood frenzy state, he would be able to recover quickly and would be no different from his normal state. Furthermore, his strength in the beast blood frenzy state was terrifying. He could even reach the strength of a martial sage. However, correspondingly, Yi Baiming's personality would also change greatly. He would be like a demonic beast that was filled with hostility and was obsessed with killing. Previously, after Yunxing had really performed the beast blood fusion on Yi Baiming 3 times, Yi Baiming's strength seemed to have become even more terrifying. It seemed that when Yunxing's medical skills fused with Yi Baiming's beast blood fusion, it also stimulated the most terrifying power in his body. At this thought, Cheng Bai and Bu Jiuxiao were secretly shocked. Think of a way to control Baiming, otherwise. Bu Jiuxiao also looked anxious. The Blood Hand Trenches camp could be said to have been cleared out by them. However, Yi Baiming did not seem to have any intention of stopping. Help! Save me! Lord Baiming, I'm Tang Yu. I'm not a member of the Bloody Hand Tycoon. As he spoke, Yi Baiming picked Tang Yu up. Tang Yu's 200 kilograms of fat was like a defenseless chicken in his hands. Tang Yu was also scared out of his wits by Yi Baiming's crazed murderous look. He was choked by the neck and his face was the color of an eggplant. It looked like he was about to be choked to death. When Cheng and Bu saw this, they hurriedly stepped forward and held Yi Baiming from both sides. They were here to save people. Not to mention that the Bloody Hand Tycoon didn't kill Tang Yu was strangled to death by Yi Baiming in the end. However, Yi Baiming did not care about this. His eyes were bloodshot from killing. The beast blood frenzy had filled his entire body with a ruthless aura. His pair of gray eyes were like rubies, emitting a bewitching light. His 10 fingers were like iron rods that kept tightening. Cheng and Bu were both martial marquee experts, but no matter how they tried to persuade or pull Yi Baiming's body, he did not move an inch. Seeing that Tang Yu's limbs were getting weaker and weaker, and his eyes were rolling back, Cheng Bai shouted anxiously, "Baiming, calm down. He's Tang Yu, Yunxing's cousin." Who? Yi Baiming, who had entered a frenzied state, had entered a state where all 6 of his senses had disappeared. His eyes were covered with a layer of red. He could not hear Cheng Bai's words. But just as he was in a daze, he heard a name. Yunxing. Yunxing's cousin. It was as if a bright light had suddenly appeared in the darkest night. A part of his heart softened. Yi Baiming's hand loosened. Tang Yu fell to the ground, gasping for breath, his fat jiggling like rice bran. It was too frightening. He had almost died. Yi Baiming was also gasping for breath. After regaining consciousness, the strange scales on his body immediately disappeared, and his body quickly returned to its original appearance. The redness at the bottom of his eyes also dissipated. He looked at the horrifying corpses on the ground, his eyes calm, as if the massacre had nothing to do with him. Just now, in the instant that he regained consciousness, Yi Baiming understood that his strength had broken through again. "Baiming, you're finally awake. You scared us to death." Cheng Bai wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead, and exchanged a look with Bu Jiuxiao. Just now, if he had not said Yunxing's name in a moment of desperation, most likely, such a Yi Baiming would be too frightening. Cheng Bai and Bu Jiuxiao already understood that Yunxing was probably the only bottom line for Yi Baiming to maintain his consciousness. Just based on this point, they silently agreed that Yunxing was Yi Baiming's woman. Everyone in the Bloody Hand Tycoon's camp has been killed. What should we do next? And this kid, what do you plan to do with him? Cheng Bai looked at Tang Yu bitterly. This kid could not be killed. But if they did not kill him and brought him back to the Jade Capital, and if Yi Baiming's secret was exposed, the consequences would be, "Tang Yu, I won't kill you. I promised her that I would bring you back." Yi Baiming looked down at Tang Yu. When Tang Yu met Yi Baiming's gaze, he shuddered. The Lord beaming in front of him was like the god of the underworld from hell. He was handsome, bloodthirsty, and could take a person's life with just a breath. Lord beaming, I won't say anything. I swear that if I reveal even a little bit of the secret, my intestines will be pierced and I will die a horrible death. Tang Yu was scared out of his wits. He knelt on the ground mechanically and kowtowed. Bring him back. Also, cut off the heads of everyone here and bring them back. I want to give a big gift to the young city lord of Grand Emperor City and the Dark Crown Prince. Since they had come to Zhou State, he, as the Zhou State's Lord beaming, would take the place of the weak Zhou State Emperor and entertain them properly. Only half an hour passed. There was still a faint light on the horizon. The Bloody Hand Tycoon, an organization that was once notorious on the boundless continent, had disappeared. On the same morning, there was another person who was restless. Yun Tsangxue had already gotten up. She had not slept at all last night. That day at the birthday banquet, when Tian Kezi challenged her father to a duel, Yun Tsangxue felt as if she had been struck by lightning. For a moment, she even lost her ability to think. She finally understood that she had been secretly used by the Grand Emperor City and the later Qin State. At this moment, she was filled with regret. Yun Tsangxue was not a fool. She understood the principle of sharing glory and loss together. Originally, she had poisoned her father because of her only son, Tang Yu. However, she had thought that the other party only wanted to slowly exhaust Yun Ba's life. After a few years, Yun Ba would die naturally like he had died of old age. At that time, she could rightfully inherit the Yun residence's property. Who knew that the Dark Crown Prince of the later Qin State and the Martial Saint of the later Qin State, Tian Kezi, would suddenly appear at the birthday banquet? Only then did Yun Tsangxue understand that those people not only wanted to frame Yun Ba, but they also wanted to viciously ruin the reputation of the entire Yun residence. Chapter 407. Yun Tsangxue knew very well that if the Yun residence collapsed, even if Yu returned, the mother and daughter would be stray dogs. Their lives would be 1,000 times harder than they were now. In these 3 days, Yun Tsangxue often wanted to confess to her father, Yun Ba. She still had a glimmer of hope in her heart. Her father doted on her the most. If she said that she was forced, perhaps there would still be some leeway. But that person from the Bloody Hand Tycoon refused to leave. That night, he had appeared in her room without anyone noticing. He had even brought along one of Tang Yu's fingers. "Third Miss Yun, you are a smart person. You should know that if you speak carelessly, young Master Tang will pay with his life." Yun Tsangxue had been so frightened that her face had drained of color. She had dismissed the idea of confessing. No, father will definitely lose the competition in a few days. Once father loses, the Yun residence will collapse. I can't just sit here and wait for death. I must find you, Yun Tsangxue's head was splitting from thinking. It was only at dawn that she abruptly stood up. She searched the room for a while and found a few purple gold cards and some jewelry. She wanted to take all the valuable things and sneak out of the mansion. These aren't enough. There are also the treasures and medicinal herbs in the Yun residence's storehouse. Only those can ensure that you, and I will not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of our lives. Yun Tsangxue hurriedly took out the key to the storehouse and secretly walked towards it alone. It was still early. Because Yun Ba was going to compete, the Yun residence was very quiet these days. This was to ensure that Yun Ba was in his best condition. Outside the storehouse, there were 2 guards standing guard. They found it strange that Yun Tsangxue had come to the storehouse so early in the morning. "Third Miss, you want to enter the storehouse so early in the morning?" The guards found it strange. They had also noticed that the 3rd Miss's complexion wasn't very good. "Father will be competing in a few days. I want to take some medicinal herbs to nourish his body. Yun Sangshue forced a smile. The two guards didn't ask any more questions. They opened the door to the storehouse and walked in. The Yun residence's storehouse was the place with the most treasures in the entire residence. The various treasures and precious medicinal herbs that the Yun residence had left behind after many years of operation were all hidden here. Because Yun Sangshue had been the steward of the residence all these years, Yun Ba had given the key to the storehouse to Yun Sangshue. The other key to the storehouse was in Uncle Yun's hands. Yun Sangshue took out 2 storage rings. She gritted her teeth and stuffed all the precious herbs in the storeroom and a few purple gold cards into it. In a short while, the warehouse was almost emptied. Almost 99% of the Yun residence's savings had already landed in Yun Sangshue's hands. Father, don't blame me for being ruthless. Anyway, second brother has become a hunter and eldest brother has betrayed the Yun residence for a woman. These family assets will belong to me and you sooner or later. Yun Sangshue turned to leave after ransacking the storehouse. Unexpectedly, as soon as he left, he saw Yun Sheng and Uncle Yun standing outside the storehouse. Third Miss. You. So little Miss was right. You really harmed Master. If Uncle Yun hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that the third Miss, who was the old master's favorite, would actually do such a thing. Early this morning, Yun Sheng quietly entered the residence and found Uncle Yun. Yun Sheng had also thought about it. She still had to tell Yun Ba about the magical beast amniotic fluid, but she couldn't tell him directly. After all, there had always been a grudge between her and Yun Ba. If she rashly said that Yun Sangshue was the one who put the poison in, Yun Ba would probably give her a good scolding. After thinking it over, Yun Sheng felt that Uncle Yun was the most suitable person. When Uncle Yun heard it, he didn't believe it at first, so Yun Sheng told him to directly question Yun Sangshue. Unexpectedly, Yun Sangshue was so disappointing that she actually planned to escape. Moreover, she was prepared to take away all of the Yun residence's assets to escape punishment. This way, Uncle Yun completely believed Yun Sheng's words. Uncle Yun. Yun Song, you are just a servant. What right do you have to question me? Get out of the way. Yun Sangshue's expression was ugly. When she saw Yun Sheng appear, she already knew that the matter of her poisoning had most likely been exposed. If they found Yun Ba, she really wouldn't be able to explain herself. Third Miss, how can you treat Master like this? If he knew, how sad would he be? If you have any difficulties, feel free to tell Master. Uncle Yun was heartbroken. Even now, he still believed that Yun Sangshue must have some difficulties that she had no choice but to do. Difficulties? Would he still care about my difficulties? Yun Sangshue simply smashed the pot to pieces. She stared maliciously at Yun Sheng. Ever since this wretched girl came back, everything has changed. Father used to dote on you, so much, but now. You and I were humiliated by this little wretch, but he was indifferent. That's fine, but you is his only grandson. He has raised her in the Yun residence for more than 10 years. No matter what, their relationship should be better than that wretch who was chased out of the house. In the end, Yu was exiled, but he was indifferent. Yun Sangshue's words were malicious. She believed that her actions today were all because of Yun Sheng. That day, when her father scolded her and told her to get out of the Yun residence, she already understood that in her father's heart, she couldn't compare to Yun Sheng. When her eldest brother was still around, it was the same. Now that her eldest brother was gone, another Yun Sheng had appeared. Third Miss, you've misunderstood Master. Uncle Yun still wanted to explain. He put in so much effort for the little young Master. Although being exiled to the northwest is a bit difficult, Master's subordinates are there. He ordered people to take care of the little young Master along the way. Yun Sangshue's heart ached and she smiled bitterly. Take care. If he really took care of him, how could you have fallen into the hands of the bloody hand tycoon? He doesn't care about me, his daughter, or his grandson. Uncle Yun, no need to say any more. If you didn't provoke the bloody hand tycoon, how could so many things have happened? You only have yourself to blame. I advise you to quickly go to old General Yun to ask for forgiveness and leave behind the Yun residence's belongings. Yun Xing originally wanted to personally rush to the bloody hand tycoon's headquarters. Although she didn't like Tang Yu couldn't die now. However, Yi Baiming stopped her. Yi Baiming said that he would save Tang Yu. After saying that, the night fox disappeared. Yunxing also didn't know what Tang Yu's current situation was. The bloody hand tycoon belonged to Grand Emperor City and was definitely not weak. Yunxing wasn't worried. Yi Baiming's strength was unfathomable. She just didn't know when he would be able to return to the Jade Capital. Little slut, what right do you have to question me? Yun Sangshue raised her eyebrows when she heard that. Her beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent. A wave of fighting aura rose around her body and she struck her palm towards Yunxing's face. That palm carried a force of 500 kilograms. If it landed, it would be enough to shatter a huge rock. She hated and was angry at Yunxing. She hated her for stealing her position in the Yun residence and was angry at her for causing her and Yu to have no place to stay. She used a killing move the moment she attacked. Third miss. You can't. Uncle Yun turned pale with fright. Thank you Minion, Fish, and Tin for your tips. Thank you everyone for your votes. Chapter 408. Yunsheng was already prepared. With a wave of her magic scepter, a small lightning bolt immediately appeared in the sky, rumbling loudly. She had fought with Yun Sangshue before, but after 3 days, Yun Sangshue was still the same Yun Sangshue, while Yun Xing was no longer the same Yun Xing. Yun Sangshue was a martial honor, while Yun Xing was a master magician. In close combat, Yun Sangshue was a martial artist, so she had the advantage. However, after Yun Xing obtained the second Demon Charm's Soul Stone, her attacks had a paralyzing effect. Lightning flash struck Yun Sangshue's hand, and Yun Sangshue only felt numbness all over her body. Immediately after, a majestic water-type magic element transformed into a water python, opening its mouth towards her. Chi, Yun Sangshue felt her entire body go numb. She had already been firmly bound by Yun Xing's water bind. Yun Xing kicked her and found several purple gold cards and 2 storage rings on her body. Little bitch, how dare you treat me like this? You'll definitely die a horrible death. Yun Sangshue cursed. Uncle Yun had a difficult expression. Take her to old General Yun, Yun Xing said coldly. Early in the same morning, Xian Wuji and the Dark Crown Prince were both staying in the residence of the later Qin state in Zhou state. The day of the martial sages of the 2 states was getting closer and closer. The 2 of them were confident of victory. Suddenly, a guard came to reporting to Your Highness, Martial Sage. This morning, a box was sent to the door. It was said to be for Your Highness, Martial Sage, and young city lord. A gift? A gift came early in the morning. The Dark Crown Prince and the others were astonished. Over the past few days, the Great Zhou Emperor did not dare to neglect the few of them in the Great Zhou Empire. He treated them very well, but secretly, he was closely monitoring every movement in the envoy residence. Who would send a gift at this time? The person who sent the gift was an ordinary-looking servant. After giving the gift, he left. Several guards carried a box in. The gift was a square box. It looked like an ordinary box used to transport goods on the continent. The outside was made of willow wood and high-quality copper leather. There were 2 heavy iron locks on the lock. It was so tight that no one could see what was inside. "Open it." Dark Prince Dugashio frowned. Tian Kz and the others were on high alert, afraid that there were hidden weapons in the box. Clack! The bodyguard swung his saber and cut off the lock. There was a dull sound of the box being opened. A hot, fishy smell assaulted their nostrils. Several heads rolled out of the box. The blood on it had yet to solidify. There were more than 200 human heads in the chest. Even though the Dark Crown Prince and Tian Kz were used to killing, their expressions couldn't help but change slightly. Of all the people present, the one who was most shocked was Xian Wuji. He recognized the heads as belonging to one of his subordinates, the Blood Hand Tycoon. How could that be? Who was it? Who the hell sent this box here? Xian Wuji's expression was ferocious. More than 200 people were killed. This meant that the Blood Hand Tycoon's headquarters had been massacred. Last night, he had contacted the leader of the red-robed men. At that time, there were no signs. How could the forces that Grand Emperor City had painstakingly cultivated for many years be wiped out overnight? And he, the young city lord, was completely in the dark. Young city lord, are these people your subordinates? Later Qin Crown Prince Dugashio quickly retracted his surprised expression. It was obvious that this person sent this box to provoke them. Looking at the expressions on the faces of the human heads, they all died with their eyes bulging out of their sockets. It was obvious that they had died in fear. To be able to make a group of assassins who killed without batting an eyelid reveal such an expression, what kind of terrifying existence was the murderer? Was there such a ruthless character in Zhou State? The Dark Crown Prince was like a cat that smelled blood. Unlike Xian Wuji, he was not angered by the other party. Instead, the blood in his body was like boiling water, boiling endlessly. Only such a ruthless character was worthy of being Dugashio's opponent. Unfortunately, that servant came and went without a trace. He did not leave behind any clues. It must be the Yun residence. Xian Wuji had not been in the Jade capital for long. Grand Emperor City was also a hidden city. Other than the Yun residence, he did not have any other enmity in the Jade capital. The relationship between the Blood Hand Tycoon and Grand Emperor City was even rarer. It's not the Yun residence. Yun Ba and Yun Sanglang are pedantic and righteous people. They would not be so ruthless. The Dark Crown Prince's gaze darkened as he thought of Yun Sheng. However, that little girl did not seem to have the ability to travel between the Northwest and the Jade capital in one night. But Tang Yu's head is not here. That person must have saved Tang Yu. Without Tang Yu, that woman Yun Sangxue will definitely fly into a rage out of humiliation. She might even tell the Yun residents about us. If Yun Ba knows the truth, he might regret the match. At that time, wouldn't our many days of preparation be in vain? Xian Wuji was furious. The box had already been transported away, but the smell of blood lingered for a long time. The Dark Crown Prince and Tian Kz were used to this smell, but Xian Wuji's expression was not good. After this battle, the Blood Hand Tycoon had probably been uprooted. He left the Grand Emperor's city this time and caused the city to suffer such a great loss. He would probably be punished by his father when he returned to the city. Chapter 409. Yun Ba's heart was filled with mixed feelings. He was angry at his own daughter for failing to live up to his expectations and hated the people of Grand Emperor's city for being the mastermind behind the scenes. However, he was also angry that he had been kept in the dark about this matter and it was actually a silly girl like Yun Xing who had discovered it. The most infuriating thing was that this silly girl was clearly concerned about the Yun residents and him, but she was stubborn and still refused to acknowledge him as her grandfather. To put it bluntly, he might not have many days left in his old bones, but this girl still refused to call him grandfather. Tang Yu's whereabouts were unknown, and if something really happened to him, he wouldn't even have a grandchild to wear mourning clothes with. Just thinking of this caused Yun Ba's stubborn temper to flare up again. Old General, this is your Yun residence's internal affairs. As an outsider, it's not appropriate for me to interfere. Yun Sheng was very dissatisfied with Yun Ba's forceful attitude. Back then, he must have used the same tone to force her parents to scram out of the Yun residence. Outsider. Outsider my ass. You are my granddaughter, your surname is Yun, and your father is Yun Songhai. You have to acknowledge your ancestors and return to your family. Yun Ba jumped up, his old face pulling a long face. He jumped in front of Yun Xing, looking like he was jumping up and down. The scene became comical all of a sudden. Yun Xing smiled coldly. But my mother is Hu Jiuxing, the woman you don't acknowledge. If you want me to acknowledge my ancestors and return to my family, then bring my mother's memorial tablet into the Yun residence's ancestral hall. This woman once said that if my father and I want to return to the Yun residence, we must first kowtow 3 times and disassociate ourselves from my mother. If you want me to acknowledge my ancestors and return to my family, then you must acknowledge my mother's identity and let this woman kneel 3 times and kowtow 9 times in front of my mother's memorial tablet as an apology. Yun Sheng was rarely so agitated, but she still remembered how Yun Tsangxue had blocked her outside the Yun residence and insulted her, her father, and her mother whom she had never met. Out of anger, Yun Sheng clenched the beast language ring in her hand tightly. That was the only thing Hu Jiuxing had left for her. When Yun Tsangxue heard this, he cursed loudly, "Little bitch. You think you're worthy? You're the same as your mother. Both of you have filthy blood that the world can't tolerate." Paw! There was a loud bang. Yun Tsangxue fell to the ground in shock, and the words that were about to come out of her mouth stopped in shock. She opened her eyes wide in disbelief, as if she had seen the most inconceivable thing in the world. Yun Ba raised a trembling hand. Uncle Yun and Yun Songlong were also stunned. "Father, you hit me. You hit me for this little slut." Yun Tsangxue seemed to have lost his mind. Yun Ba had never been as furious as he was today. He treated his 2 sons very harshly, but towards Yun Tsangxue, because she was the family's only daughter and her appearance was very similar to the late Madame Yun, Yun Ba doted on her very much. This was the first time Yun Tsangxue had been hit by Yun Ba since she was born. "Uncle Yun, from today onwards, Yun Tsangxue has nothing to do with the Yun residence. Take her back to her room and take her clothes. You can't take anything else with you. If she comes to the Yun residence to cause a ruckus, throw her out." Yun Ba's voice trembled, and it was unknown whether it was because of grief or fear. He waved his hand, unwilling to look at Yun Tsangxue again. "Father, you can't throw me out." Yun Tsangxue was in a daze. She must have been possessed just now. She actually brought up that matter carelessly. When her eldest brother had left the Yun residence that year, her father had warned her not to mention her sister-in-law in front of outsiders at any time. But today, she had made an exception. Yun Sheng was also astonished. Although she didn't hear what Yun Tsangxue wanted to say, it seemed that Yun Tsangxue was insulting her and her mother. The filthy blood that the world couldn't tolerate, could it be that there was something special about her mother's background? Uncle Yun sighed and helped Yun Tsangxue up, softly persuading her, "Third miss, you've really made a mistake this time. You should leave. Master and the Yun residents have already suffered because of you." Yun Tsangxue didn't struggle anymore. She took a few steps, then suddenly remembered something and pounced on Yun Xing. Since you know the truth, you must know Yu's whereabouts. It's all my fault. You can't hurt Yu. Yunba's slap just now had woken Yun Sangxue up. Previously, she only knew to blame Yunxing, but after thinking about it, since Yunxing could find out the origin of the poison, she must know the whereabouts of her precious son. She had nothing left now except for her son, Tang Yu. Yunxing cast a glance at Yunba. The old man's lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to say something. Blood was thicker than water. No matter how mischievous Tang Yu was, he was still Yunba's grandson. Earlier, Yi Baiming had said that he would bring Tang Yu back safe and sound by noon at the latest. She had also said that if Yi Baiming found Tang Yu, he should settle him outside the city. After all, Tang Yu was still a criminal in name and shouldn't appear in the Jade Capital. If you want to know Tang Yu's whereabouts, tell me the method and location of the meeting between you and the Bloody Hand Tycoon. Even though Yi Baiming had gone to the Bloody Hand Tycoon's headquarters, Yunxing believed that the Bloody Hand Tycoon had contacts in the Jade Capital. Perhaps she could use this point to dig out Xian Wuji. In the entire matter, the most despicable person was that shameless young city lord of the Grand Emperor City. Yun Sangxue hesitated, but in the end, she couldn't resist her impatient heart. She gave Yunxing the method to contact the red-robed man, the secret signal to meet, and the remaining amniotic fluid poison of the demonic beasts. Only then did Yunxing reveal Tang Yu's whereabouts. Yun Sangxue didn't thank her and turned to leave. When she reached the door, Yunba opened his mouth. Yun Sangxue, you're on your own. Watch your mouth. If I hear anything about Yunxing and her son, don't blame me for not remembering our father-daughter relationship. After Uncle Yun left with Yun Sangxue, the three members of the Yun family stood in the main hall, no one saying a word. Yunxing was still muttering in her heart. She looked at Yun Songlong, who didn't have any reaction. It seemed that second uncle didn't know about this matter either. Yunba also didn't ask Yunxing to acknowledge her ancestors. For a moment, both grandfather and grandson were in a deadlock, not saying anything. Yun Songlong had also rushed over. In a day, he learned of his sister's betrayal and saw his father lose his composure. His mind was also filled with a myriad of thoughts. After a long time, he said, "Father, since we've already found out that you've been poisoned, and it's a strange poison, and no one in Zhou State can cure it for the time being, why don't we report this matter to the Emperor and cancel the competition in a few days?" Yun Sangshue's grave mistake had already been made, and there was no antidote. Under such circumstances, if Yun Ba were to compete with someone else, he would undoubtedly lose. Cancel? Why should I cancel? If I cancel, the entire continent will laugh at me, and Zhou State will lose those purple gold ores. This old man wants to fight this battle. Don't try to persuade me. Yun Ba was in a terrible mood, but his temper was even worse. He refused to give up on this competition no matter what. Father. Yun Songlong wanted to persuade him again. Say no more. This old man has already made up his mind. I'm going into seclusion for the next 2 days. If there's nothing important, don't disturb me. Yun Ba waved his hand impatiently. He didn't want Yun Songlong to say any more. After he finished speaking, he went to the training room. Chapter 410. Yun Songlong looked troubled. Then, he glanced at Yunxing and saw that the little girl was deep in thought. He didn't know what she was thinking about. Xing, it's all thanks to you this time. Are you still thinking about what third sister said? Don't take it to heart. She has been jealous of eldest brother since she was young and doesn't like your mother very much. Don't take her words to heart, Yun Songlong comforted. Second uncle, have you ever seen my mother? Why is old General Yun so displeased with her? Although Yunxing had never seen Hu Jiuxing, she had seen a memory fragment that Hu Jiuxing had left in the beast language ring when she received it. In the memory fragment, Hu Jiuxing's face was incomparably beautiful and her voice was gentle. She was a peerless woman. How could such a person attract old General Yun's disgust? Could it be that mother had done something unforgivable? Or was her identity very special? Yun Xing and Yun Ba had interacted for a while. Although she didn't like old General Yun's temperament that was easily ignited, she knew that this grandfather of hers wasn't a bad person. On the contrary, Yun Ba abhorred evil. His biggest flaw was that he cared a lot about his reputation and had a fiery temper. If Hu Jiuxing attracted his disgust, she must have violated some of his taboos. Xing, second uncle has never seen your mother. Your father is always on the move. When he brought your mother to the Yun residence for the new year, it happened that there was a riot at the borders and I was still guarding the south. But third sister should have interacted with your mother for a while. Yun Sanglang pondered for a moment. That's right, you can also ask Uncle Yun. He has been by father's side all year round and should know something. Yun Xing nodded. Xing, you asked about the red-robed men's whereabouts just now. Are you planning to? Yun Sanglang didn't want Yun Xing to be in danger. Second uncle, I'm afraid you don't know that the mastermind behind the so-called red-robed men of the Bloody Hand Tycoon is most likely Dihong City. Don't you want to take advantage of this opportunity to take revenge? Yun Xing revealed a sinister smile. Yun Ba was meditating in the training room. He circulated the dou qi in his body and found that the dou qi accumulated in his body was much less than before. What that little girl said was true. With his skills, he was afraid that he would not be able to compete with Tian Kz in the competition a few days later. Zhangxue had actually tried to kill him. Yun Ba's aura was unstable, so he simply stopped meditating. Master, everything has been settled. Uncle Yun walked in quietly. Little young master has been sent back. This time, it's all thanks to little Mississippi that little girl's methods are brilliant. It's only been a few days, and even the dignified Bloody Hand Tycoon has been uprooted by her. Tang Yu, that disappointment, is she all right? Yun Ba also looked a little unconvinced. He hadn't expected that he couldn't even keep an eye on Tang Yu in his own territory in the northwest. This had given the Bloody Hand Tycoon and the later Qin people an opportunity to take advantage of. They're fine. They're just a little dispirited and listless. This old servant has already found a residence outside the city and settled them down. Uncle Yun also knew that Yun Ba had truly been angered this time. Especially since Yun Sangxue had actually almost exposed the little Miss's identity at the very end. That little girl has a temperament that's prone to causing trouble. Sangxue's words must have aroused her suspicions. If she comes to ask you in the next few days, you definitely can't tell her what happened back then. Back then, if Zhangxue hadn't accidentally overheard my conversation with Songhai, things wouldn't have gotten to this point today. Yun Ba looked very dejected. But master, little miss is a clear-minded person. Her current identity isn't simple either, and she already has several forces by her side that can protect her. She will know the truth sooner or later. Uncle Yun also asked Tang Yu a few questions as he escorted Yun Sangxue and his daughter. He wanted to know who had rescued him. However, the little young master, who had always been a blabbermouth, gritted his teeth this time. Even when third miss asked, he didn't say a word. Looking at him, the other party seemed to be a very powerful person. It's precisely because she's gradually building up her own forces and has a tough personality that I'm worried. If she finds out one day that her mother didn't die at all, and that the poison in Songhai's body was caused by... Do you think, with her personality, she'll just let it go? Yun Ba was the martial saint of Zhou State, and he feared nothing. However, every time he spoke of the force that had forced his eldest son to abandon the family, and the force behind it, he couldn't help but change his expression. The darkness of this mainland was only the tip of the iceberg. Although the current Yun Xing was exceptionally talented, she wasn't strong enough to defy the heavens. He couldn't let his granddaughter take any risks. Yun Song, don't forget that Empress Li was secretly imprisoned because of that incident and ended up in such a miserable state. Even if we don't consider that terrifying force, we still have to consider the pressure from the imperial family. Yun Ba was also worried about this point. Master, this old servant understands. I definitely won't tell little miss about those things. Uncle Yun sighed. Master was right. Eldest young master was powerful enough back then. Eldest young master Yun Songhai was very talented. A large part of Little Miss' talent was inherited from eldest young master. Yun Songhai was only in his 20s back then and was already a sky sorcerer. However, in the face of that terrifying force, he still ended up in his current state. Little Miss was exceptionally talented, but she was still far from eldest young master's sky sorcerer cultivation. Yun Ba and Uncle Yun had already made up their minds. Even if Yun Xing didn't want to return to the family, they would still protect her. In the Jade Capital, they couldn't let anyone touch Little Mississippi. Just as Yun Ba had predicted, Yun Xing really did find Uncle Yun not long after. However, with Yun Ba's warning, no matter how she asked, Uncle Yun insisted that he didn't know anything about Yun Xing's mother's background. Yun Xing had no choice but to give up on the idea of getting information from Uncle Yun. She thought about it again. Her mother's surname was Fox. This surname was very rare on the mainland. Perhaps she could find some clues from this surname. Yun Xing decided to use the local Hunters Guild in the Jade Capital to issue a mission to search for information about the family or people related to the surname Fox. As long as someone had some clues, they could contact her through the Hunters Guild. After her inquiries were fruitless, Yun Xing returned to Wushuan Everlasting Hall, somewhat dejected. To her surprise, she met Yi Baiming. Chapter 411. Yun Xing looked at the clock. It was still the hour. She had already heard from Uncle Yun that Tang Yu had been rescued. Yi Baiming was true to his word. He had actually used only one night and half a day to rescue Tang Yu. You killed everyone from the Bloody Hand Tycoon. When Yun Xing first heard the news, she was still a little shocked. She knew Yi Baiming's style of doing things. He had always been a lone wolf. Even if he had companions, it would only be Qing Bai and Bu Jiuxiao. Not a single one was spared. And I also found clues to the connection between Xian Wuji and the Bloody Hand Tycoon. Yi Baiming took out a few letters. One of the letters clearly stated that Xian Wuji had ordered a high-level assassin from the Bloody Hand Tycoon to seduce Xian Yu and then took advantage of Tang Yu's drunken state to frame Tang Yu for adultery. The ins and outs of the entire matter were written clearly. Furthermore, in the letter, Xian Wuji had set a trap for Yun Sangxue to contact the Bloody Hand Tycoon. The Bloody Hand Tycoon then used Tang Yu's exile to kidnap and threaten her. Only then did the ins and outs of the entire matter surface. After Yun Xing finished reading the letter, a ruthless look appeared between her brows. In addition, Yi Baiming had also brought back all the people the Bloody Hand Tycoon had killed over the years, as well as some of the Bloody Hand Tycoon's superstitions. After reading these letters, Grand Emperor City, which was behind the Bloody Hand Tycoon, slowly revealed its true colors. Yun Xing clenched the letter tightly, anger rising in her heart. She had never been a bloodthirsty person. Because she was a doctor, she was even more opposed to killing. However, Grand Emperor City had pressured the Yun residents step by step, causing Yun Songlong to suffer for several years. This time, the outcome of Yun Ba's competition was uncertain. Everything was because of Xian Wuji. If Xian Wuji escaped this time, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yun Xing's brows were tightly knitted. Her delicate face was filled with murderous intent, exuding an unprecedented charm. Yi Baiming could not help but feel a ripple in his heart. Thank you so much this time. Yunxing looked up and saw Yi Baiming looking at her with a faint smile. She blushed slightly. Are you hurt? She noticed that there was a shadow on Yi Baiming's arm. Thinking that he was injured, she went forward to check. However, Yi Baiming grabbed her hand and quickly hid it behind his back. There seemed to be a flash of panic in his eyes. I'm not injured. Those people can't do anything to me. What do you plan to do now that Xian Wuji has not been caught? Yi Baiming had already put the heads of the Bloody Hand Tycoon in a big box and sent it to the later Qin embassy. At this moment, the later Qin embassy was probably in chaos. However, he was worried that he would frighten Yunxing, so he did not mention this matter to Yunxing. Scourges live for 1,000 years. The sooner we get rid of them, the better. Yunxing carefully read the letter again. In Xian Wuji's letter, there were only some daily orders. It did not mention where he had gotten the bottle of amniotic fluid poison. Although the Dark Crown Prince was a black-bellied and cruel person, he was not fond of using poison. The poison must not have been ordered by him. Behind this scene, there must be other forces involved. You plan to kill Xian Wuji personally. With your current strength, I'm afraid you're not strong enough. Yi Baiming shook his head. He did not want to let Yunxing take the risk alone. Yunxing was about to say that she had summoned a beast to help her when she heard Zhou Quan shouting loudly as he walked in. Young Master Yun, I'm back. Hearing Zhou Quan's voice, Yunxing remembered that Zhou Quan had been ordered by her to bring Tycoon Jin to various hunter citadels to participate in the competition. He had said that he would be back in 3 months. However, a full 4.5 months had passed and Zhou Quan still had not returned. Yunxing was also busy investigating Yunba's poison and the medical center, so she did not think of this matter for a while. Zhou Quan was here to claim credit. He brought along the cloaked weirdo and was ordered to participate in the competition. He only knew that the other party's name was Tycoon Jin. He did not know his gender, origin, age, or even appearance. Along the way, Zhou Quan even spoke to the other party enthusiastically several times, but Tycoon Jin did not respond to him at all. This hurt Zhou Quan greatly. He did not know how many times he had ridiculed Tycoon Jin in his heart. He even suspected that this fellow was mute. He also did not know what his young master's intentions were for him to bring this mute around. His first stop was Daoi Mountain Citadel. He had been there once and was quite familiar with the place. In addition, due to the Purple Gold Mine incident at the border of Zhou State, the Sky Expedition Hunting Corps had risen to fame in Zhou State. The Hunting Corps had also jumped 2 ranks from the initial E rank to a B rank Hunting Corps. Zhou Quan's journey could be considered very smooth. However, what made Zhou Quan very depressed was that in the first few days, he was almost angered to death by Tycoon Jin. Yunxing only said that Tycoon Jin was a new hunter that she had recruited and did not know anything. She wanted it to participate in more battles to increase its actual combat experience. Zhou Quan thought that with young Master Yun's perverted personality, how could a hunter recruited be bad? Young Master Yun must have been being polite. Tycoon Jin's ability was definitely not bad. Who would have known that Zhou Quan was gravely mistaken this time? As soon as Tycoon Jin entered the arena, it was sent flying by an E-rank hunter as soon as the fight started. Chapter 412. Zhou Quan also noticed that Tyrant Jin's learning ability was especially strong. In the first 10 days, it had been learning the other party's battle skills and magic. Zhou Quan finally understood young Master Yun's intentions. She clearly wanted him to bring Tyrant Jin everywhere to learn how to destroy the competition. From that day onwards, Zhou Quan was like a brothel keeper, valiantly bringing along the red card, hired thug, Tyrant Jean, all the way from Daoi Mountain to the north, south, east, west, and north. Almost all of the great Zhou's hunter citadels had been visited by him. As Tyrant Jin's hunter level got higher and higher, his opponents also got stronger and stronger. Everywhere he went, he would still lose in the first few days, but after 10 days or at least 1 day, he would start to win. In the end, Zhou State's hunter citadel already knew that there was a hunter called Tyrant Jean, who came from the Heaven Expedition Hunting Corps. This person didn't say a word, but he was extremely strong. He could learn any battle skills in one go. It was fine if he lost the competition, but learning battle skills and magic in one go was a big problem. The hunters who were competing with them didn't want their unique combat skills to be inexplicably learned by someone else. Therefore, as soon as Tycoon Gold arrived, all the hunters in the major arenas stopped fighting and were unwilling to compete with him. In the end, even the Hunter Union was alarmed by this incident. The reason Zhou Quan and Tyrant Jean returned was because the Zhou State's Hunters Guild jointly issued a ban, forbidding Tyrant Jean from entering the Hunter Citadel in the future. So, we had no choice but to return. Young Master Yun, where did you find Tyrant Jin's treasure? Don't you know that he's now a fierce character that even the Hunters Guild is afraid of? Zhou Quan was very proud. Yun Sheng was listening on the side, laughing so hard that she almost cried. During this period of time, she rarely went to the Heaven Expedition Hunting Corps and didn't contact the Hunters Guild. She didn't expect that Tyrant Jean, an eternal magic weapon that she unintentionally refined, would become such a powerful character. However, she had achieved her goal of training Tyrant Jean. From the looks of it, Tyrant Jin's strength must have improved greatly. While Zhou Quan was complaining, Tyrant Jean stood quietly on the side. To it, the training of the past was nothing more than a kind of mechanical training. He wasn't a human, but a magic weapon. He would do whatever his master, Yun Sheng, wanted him to do. Yi Baiming was also sizing up Tyrant Jean. Even with his eyesight, he couldn't see through Tyrant Jin's cultivation level. Yi Baiming didn't know that Tyrant Jean wasn't a human, but a magic weapon, so he couldn't help but be confused. Tyrant Jean was Tyrant Jean was Tyrant Jin's Tyrant Jean was Tyrant Jean was Tyrant Jin's Tyrant Jin's Tyrant Jean Tyrant Jin's Tyrant Jean. Jean Tyrant Tyrant's Tyrant Jean. Young Master Yun, hurry up and get this guy to do the mission. With his ruthlessness, he'll kill anyone he sees. Even if it's an A-rank mission, he won't even frown and solve it. Zhou Quan's face was full of smiles when he thought of Tycoon Jean accompanying his brothers to do missions. Right now, Tycoon Jean was simply a killing machine in human form. Yunxing didn't say anything. She just told Zhou Quan to report back to the hunting camp. After Zhou Quan left, Yi Baiming was still sizing up Tyrant Jean with a frown. It's not a human, right? If I'm not wrong, it's an eternal magic weapon? Yunxing raised her eyebrows and gave Yi Baiming a thumbs up. He was indeed a wild fox. Eternal magic weapons were extremely rare on the mainland. Yi Baiming saw through it at a glance. Is it really an eternal magic weapon? Yi Baiming couldn't help but be moved. Yunxing took off Tyrant Jin's cloak, and a purple gold man appeared in front of Yi Baiming. Purple gold. A magic weapon made of purple gold. No wonder it was called Tycoon Gold. With such a shiny golden artifact, it was enough to blind everyone's eyes. Yi Baiming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Little Wild Cat's thinking ability was really extraordinary. The shape of this magic weapon was really rich and domineering. He knew that Yunxing had obtained the remaining quarter of the purple gold mine, but he didn't expect that Yunxing would use the purple gold mine to refine an eternal magic weapon. He naturally didn't know that this purple gold man didn't use the quarter of the purple gold mine that Yunxing had obtained. Instead, it was forged from the more precious purple gold wall stone combined with elven hellfire. Little wild cat, your eternal magic weapon is quite strong. Are you still worried about the competition in a few days? Yi Baiming narrowed his foxy eyes and looked at it for a while. Who's worried? I'm not worried about that old man Yunba, Yunxing said, half in a fit of pique. Yun Songlong and Uncle Yun had already tried to persuade him, but Yunba was stubborn and didn't listen to them. He kicked everyone out. Yunsheng was also unwilling to pry open that smelly and hard old latrine stone. Yunsheng was angry, but Yi Baiming saw her reaction. Looking at Yunsheng's obviously haggard face, Yi Baiming's eyes had an additional trace of deep thought. He somewhat missed the lazy little wild cat that was lying under the sun in Banana Leaf Village. However, he couldn't directly help in this matter. After all, his identity was special. Empress Qi and the Crown Prince hadn't made any moves recently, but there were many people secretly watching Wushuan Limitless School. The words "I'm very worried" are written on your face. There's no need to quibble. Yi Baiming's words almost made Yunxing depressed to death. Night Fox was her destined nemesis. He would see through everything at a glance. What's the use of worrying? I can't help him. I can't cure the poison. I can't help in the competition either. Yunxing complained in a sulky tone. You can find someone to replace Yunba in the competition. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, you can avoid it. Yi Baiming pointed out. Replace Yunba. That's impossible. That old man won't agree. Furthermore, there were many people with 2 legs. However, there were only a few 2-legged martial sages in the Great Zhou dynasty. Excluding those who lived in seclusion, the only one who could compete with Tian Kezi was Yunba. Besides, Tian Kezi isn't easy to deal with. He knows very well whether or not his opponent is Yunba. Yunxing hadn't thought of this problem before. In fact, Yun Songlong had wanted to replace his father and compete with Tian Kezi. Yun Songlong's cultivation wasn't bad, but he wasn't a martial sage. After taking the purple herb 1000 golden pill, his do qi had greatly increased, but he was still a martial ancestor. The difference in strength between a martial ancestor and a martial sage couldn't be closed in a few days. You don't have to worry about the competition. Think about it. If Tian Kezi is unlucky and gets ambushed the day before the competition, he might be seriously injured or even killed. At that time, Yunba won't be able to find someone to compete with. He's just a martial sage. If you don't like him, you can just kill him. Yi Baiming's foxy eyes narrowed. The corners of his eyes curved as he smiled brilliantly. Yunxing shuddered. Night Fox's thoughts were too evil. However, she liked it. Thank you, Momo and Tindrop, for your tips. Facepalm I'll be out of town for the entire week next week. There might be fewer updates on certain days. I'll make up for it later. Chapter 413. Don't tell me you're planning to challenge Tian Kz. Night Fox, you're really good at hiding your strength. Tell me honestly, are you also a powerful warrior? How powerful? Are you a martial saint as well? Yunxing was overjoyed. Why didn't she think of finding someone to slit Tian Kz's throat? As long as Tian Kz couldn't compete, Yunba wouldn't have anything to do with it. A quarter of Zhou State's purple gold mine would be saved, and the Emperor of Zhou State wouldn't be able to pick on the Yun residents anymore. Yi Baiming wasn't happy. He couldn't help but knock Yunxing on the head. His eyes were half angry and half dissatisfied. Little wild cat, you're not kind. I've been so loyal to you. Whenever something good happens, you're the first person I think of. You, on the other hand, are the first person I think of when it comes to courting death. Yi Baiming felt sour in his heart. Yunxing hugged her head and shrank to the side. She stuck out her tongue. You're one of us. Why should I be so polite with you? Besides, you were the one who suggested it. You can't blame me. Who told you to be so heaven-defying? Nothing is difficult in front of you. If you don't make a move, there won't be a suitable candidate. You can't let my second uncle and Deputy Director Jean do a sneak attack together, right? Yi Baiming was still a little unhappy, but when he heard Yunxing say, one of us, his face instantly brightened. This sentence was quite pleasant to hear. Yi Baiming rubbed his chin. I can't do it myself, but there's a very suitable candidate beside you. He glanced at the life artifact. Tyrant Gold. You wanted to assassinate Tian KZ. That's not very reliable, is it? Yunxing glanced at the life ritual implement beside her. Tyrant Gold had indeed grown a lot in the past few months, but that was only enough to upgrade it to a mid-level life ritual implement. According to the description in the Magic Weapon Encyclopedia, although an intermediate eternal magic weapon could cast any combat skill or magic spell, it could not fully exert the full strength of the caster. An intermediate eternal artifact could only display 50% of its combat skill or magic power at most. Therefore, Tycoon Jin's strength was enough to wipe out an army of ordinary warriors or mages. However, if he were to meet the true powerhouses of the continent, Tycoon Jin would not be enough. Whether it's reliable or not, I have my own judgment. If you're not worried, you can give it to me. You don't have to worry about this matter. Tian KZ definitely won't appear on the day of the competition. As Yi Baiming spoke, he gave off an indescribably shocking presence. That was absolute confidence. Only a true expert would be able to emit such an aura. Yunxing glanced at Tycoon Jin, then at Yi Baiming. Yi Baiming's net worth was much higher than hers. Although Tycoon Jin was precious, compared to Yi Baiming, Yunxing quickly made a decision. She promised Yi Baiming that she would give Tycoon Jin to him for 3 days. However, I also have a request. I have helped you so much. You should at least give me something in return. Yi Baiming changed the topic. He stretched out his long arm and smoothly scooped up Yunxing. Yunxing was angry, but she could only stare. This was not the first time Yi Baiming had touched her. But she could not do anything to this guy. In terms of strength, Yi Baiming was like an iron King Kong. Yunxing suspected that even Puffed Egg would have a headache if it met him. In terms of magic, well, her magic was no match for him. Although Yi Baiming did not use a magic scepter, he could always easily break Yunxing's magic. Since violent resistance was useless, she might as well lie down and enjoy it. In any case, Yi Baiming was born with good looks and his figure was also quite good. From Yunxing's angle, Yi Baiming's face was perfect and flawless. Even his eyelashes were black and dense. When they fluttered slightly, it could make one's heart beat faster. It did not feel bad to be in his arms. Yunxing treated it as if she was hugging a human-shaped pillow. But why was he hugging her for no reason? Yunxing regained her senses and realized that Yi Baiming's handsome face was getting closer and closer to her. His perfect lips were almost touching her cheek. In her previous life, she had dated Lu Minglang. But because of her personality, she rarely had any intimate actions with Lu Minglang. At most, it was just a kiss. But she had never felt the kind of feeling that Yi Baiming gave her. How old was her body now? The night fox would not suddenly turn into a big bad wolf, right? She did not need to repay him with her body to help him, right? Yunxing hurriedly turned her face away, her body stiff. Yi Baiming sensed that Yunsheng was acting strangely. A mischievous look flashed across his eyes. His gaze fell on Yunsheng's fair neck that was exposed because of her struggle, as well as the beautiful shape of her white and tender earlobes. His throat tightened slightly. Yi Baiming's heart moved. His thin lips suddenly landed on Yunsheng's ear. His hot breath pressed against Yunsheng's earlobes. Yunsheng only felt as if the base of her ears had been cooked. It was boiling hot, and her hands and feet began to struggle violently. If this continued, she would really be swallowed alive by the fox. Little wild cat, don't move. Otherwise, this prince will really swallow you alive. Yi Baiming's lips lightly touched Yunsheng's earlobes. He understood that Yunsheng did not have any romantic feelings for him, so he could not be too anxious. Sooner or later, the little wild cat would be his. When she grew up, he would not let her off so easily. Help this prince refine a batch of weapons that are fused with purple gold, Yi Baiming said slowly. He had noticed that Tyrant Jean was able to refine life magic tools. From the looks of it, not only did the little wild cat know how to refine pills, she was also much more skilled in refining weapons than he had imagined. If she did not use the resources that she had, she would not be a night fox. Most of the purple gold ore that Yi Baiming had on hand had already been roughly refined. The refining skills of those magicians were much worse than Yunsheng's. Yi Baiming's so-called repayment was to have Yunsheng refine a batch of purple gold weapons for him. After Yi Baiming said this, Yunsheng remembered that the biggest use of purple gold ore was not to refine it into purple gold coins, but to refine it into purple gold tools that all the martial artists and magicians on the continent scrambled for. Both Yi Baiming and Yunsheng had obtained a sizable amount of purple gold ore from the purple gold mine the last time they went to the mine. The two of them had one thing in common: they were not lacking in money. Yunsheng knew how to refine pills, the little sea antong had gradually begun to make a profit, and the business of the Heaven Extermination Hunting Corps was also becoming more and more prosperous. Yi Baiming had a series of organizations under his control, including the Wanlong Gambling House. The two of them were not lacking in money, so after they obtained the purple gold lode, they did not immediately refine it into purple gold coins. Yi Baiming's request was very simple. He would provide the purple gold ore and the corresponding weapons, armor, and magic scepters, and Yunsheng would be responsible for refining the purple gold sacred weapons for him. Chapter 4:14. Yunsheng thought for a while. This didn't seem too difficult. After she helped the old magician in the magic tower refine a magic scepter, she realized that the elven hellfire had a special effect in refining magic weapons, and pills. Yunsheng also realized that the more she used the elven hellfire, the higher her ability to control the magic elements. The purity of the elven hellfire would also be higher. Thus, she simply agreed to Yi Baiming's request and escaped from Yi Baiming's bear hug. Yi Baiming was indeed very efficient. After Yunsheng agreed to his request, he immediately took out 2 storage rings. In one ring, there were 500 high-grade weapons and 500 sets of battle helmets. In the other ring, there was a large amount of purple gold ore. In return, he also took away the tycoon gold and told Yunsheng to wait for news from him. Looking at the pile of purple gold ores in the storage ring, Yunsheng was overjoyed, but she also felt a sense of imbalance. As expected, Night Fox was not honest. His pile of purple gold ores was far superior to his own in both quality and quantity. Furthermore, from the looks of it, this was only a small portion of the purple gold ores he had obtained. Yunsheng's lips curled into a sly smile. She immediately called Oriole over. Oriole, go to the hunting troops encampment immediately and bring everyone's weapons and armor over. Also, ask Gufeng to bring the magic scepter over. Since she was going to refine them, she might as well refine them all. Anyway, Night Fox didn't know how much purple gold she needed to refine weapons. Only a fool would not take advantage of such a big spendthrift. Yunxing started to get busy. She simply went into seclusion in the magic tower. She first used the elven hellfire to purify the purple gold ore. Then, she fused a portion of the purple gold ore into the various armors, defensive equipment, and weapons of the Heaven Expedition hunting troop. Also, the purple gold could be fused into the magic scepter and various magic weapons. After the fusion, Yunxing realized that purple gold was indeed the #1 metal ore in the continent. Different grades of weapons and magic tools could fuse with different amounts of purple gold ore. After fusing with purple gold, the sharpness and strength of the weapon would greatly increase. The magic scepter, on the other hand, could improve magic compatibility and allow mages to use the magic scepter better. Take Yunxing for example. His armor and weapons had been fused with a lot of purple gold ores from Yunxing. Thinking about it now, Yunxing still felt pained. However, Yunxing's bewitching bone scepter was the one that had absorbed the most purple gold. Just the bewitching bone scepter alone had consumed 1/10 of the purple gold ore in Yi Baiming's storage ring. Yunxing also remembered that the Holy Wind King from the Immortal Abode had hinted that her magic scepter was not simple. A small amount of purple gold could unleash a miraculous power. This was enough to increase the overall strength of the Heaven Expedition hunting corps by at least 20%. However, Yunxing did not intend to tell this to Yi Baiming. That brat Yi Baiming had silently swallowed half of the purple gold ore vein. Just thinking about this made Yunxing's teeth itch. The time in the magic tower was slow and long. When Yunxing was tired, she would meditate and use the magic power in the magic tower to recover her magic power. The jade marrow technique in her body was also slowly increasing unknowingly. At the same time, Yi Baiming had already brought Tycoon Gold back to his residence. Tycoon Gold was a magic weapon. It did not have the ability to think like a human. Its master's thoughts were everything. Before Yunxing left, she only told Tycoon Gold to follow Yi Baiming. In these few days, since Yi Baiming was her, she would do whatever he wanted. Yi Baiming changed into a set of training clothes and brought Tycoon Gold to the private training room he built in his courtyard. The benefits of the inner pavilion of Wushuan Everlasting Martial School were much better than the outer pavilion. As the #1 disciple of Wushuan Everlasting Martial School, Yi Baiming could build a training room that was suitable for him according to his needs. When Tycoon Gold walked into the training room, his feet were obviously sluggish. As a magic weapon of life, he could already feel the uniqueness of this training room. The training room was not big. It was about 10 square meters in size. It was square and bare without any furnishings. However, in the four corners of the room, there were several magic arrays that emitted magic power. Tycoon Gold was a magic weapon of life. He could feel the changes in his surroundings. He realized that after he entered the training room, his movements became sluggish. Those magic arrays were very special. They made everyone who entered the training room feel as if they were carrying a 1,000-pound stone lion. It was difficult for them to move. However, Yi Baiming looked normal. He must have been training in such an environment for a long time and was already used to the uniqueness of this place. I don't care how many times you've won in Hunter's Citadel, but I can tell you that all the battle skills and magic you've learned are just trash that looks good on the surface but is useless. They're trash and should be thrown away. Yi Baiming changed his appearance. He exuded a terrifying aura from head to toe. The Dark North King in the day had long disappeared. Or rather, this was his true appearance. Tycoon Gold understood. Even its master, Yunxing, had never spoken to it in such a tone. After spending some time with Zhou Quan, it could probably understand the human language. Tycoon Gold was displeased that someone who was not its master would speak to it in such a tone. Not convinced? Then come at me. I will beat you until you are convinced. Therefore, Yi Baiming gathered his qi. A gust of fighting energy rose from his palms. The fighting energy was quickly compressed and covered his palms. It was as if Yi Baiming was wearing a pair of boxing gloves that were impervious to fire and water. Yi Baiming's arms shook. Fighting energy swirled around him. He threw a punch. The fighting energy was extremely powerful. Ha! A gust of fighting energy suddenly erupted from his body. The air seemed to be torn apart. With a loud bang, a black ball of fighting energy appeared in his hands. That ball of fighting energy was very special. It was pitch black, like a black hole. It could instantly swallow all the fighting energy and magic elements around it. As soon as it appeared, it exuded a terrifying destructive power. He was like a black hole in the universe. Any light, even the stars, would be swallowed as soon as it got close. Yi Baiming leaped and turned into a black shadow. In a flash, he was already beside Tycoon Gold. The black ball of fighting energy in his hands threw Tycoon Gold away. Tycoon Gold was thrown away. It was made of purple gold ore. Any attack would not be fatal to it. But this time, it struggled to get up. There was a hole in its chest. That hole could not be repaired in a short period of time. What made Tycoon Gold even more confused was that it could not imitate the opponent's attack. Strong. This man was very strong. Even if it did not have the ability to think like a human, Tycoon Gold still realized this point. Remember, this is the first battle skill that you cannot learn. Its name is Black Qilin Flame. You don't need to learn it. I just want to tell you, don't try to disobey me. Those who disobey me, even if it is a life instrument, I can destroy you in an instant. In the next day and night, you have to learn all the other fighting skills that I have taught you. In the future, they will be the only way for you to protect your little wild cat. We will call them killing skills for the time being. Yi Baiming said coldly. At this moment, he was like a supreme killing god who looked down on the world. Chapter 4:15. Very good. Little Wild Cat's life magic tool was even stronger than he had imagined. Yi Baiming didn't just want to train Tyrant Jean to kill Tian Kezi. He also wanted to nurture the continent's top killing tool. He had always wanted to find a true retainer for Yunxing. This retainer would protect Yunxing when he wasn't around. However, Yi Baiming hadn't found a suitable candidate. Tyrant Jin's appearance allowed him to find the best replacement for his retainer. One day and night passed. On this night, the wind was strong. Tian Kezi was cultivating in later Qin's embassy. In another day, he would be competing with Yunba. Although Yunba was heavily poisoned and would most likely lose, Tian Kezi didn't dare to lower his guard. He was also a martial sage, but he was still lacking compared to Yunba. Tian Kezi was a person who was extremely greedy for fame and fortune. Unlike Yunba, who was wholeheartedly loyal to Zhou state, Tian Kezi served later Qin's imperial family not only because he coveted power, but also because he wanted to rely on the imperial family to obtain better cultivation resources. He had become famous later than Yunba, and he didn't have Yunba's talent as a general. Therefore, in terms of reputation, he would always lose to Yunba. He had always wanted to replace Yunba and become Zhou state's and later Qin's #1 martial sage. Unfortunately, he had always been inferior to Yunba. Apart from the competition 8 years ago, when he had taken advantage of Yunba's perilous state to force a draw, he had been defeated by Yunba without exception in all their previous encounters. Yunba wasn't willing to publicize these matters, so the outside world had never known. Yunba, this time, I will definitely defeat you. From now on, Zhou state, later Qin, and even the entire continent, I will be the one and only martial sage. Tian Keizi's heart couldn't help but sway when he thought of the future. Suddenly, a dark shadow flitted past the door. Tian Keizi's gaze darkened. Someone had actually entered the embassy without him noticing. Tian Keizi didn't hesitate. He immediately got up and rushed out. Later Qin's embassy, 2 figures dashed out. It was already around midnight. Within the Jade Capital, not a sound could be heard. Only the barking of dogs could be heard from the narrow alleys. The more Tian Keizi followed, the more surprised he became. The figure in front of him had a strange movement technique. Even with his cultivation, he was unable to catch up to the other party in a short time. Could it be Yunba? Within Jade Capital, the only one who could match up to him in terms of skills was Yunba. But on second thought, Yunba's competition was tomorrow, so there was no way he would be so sneaky. The two of them quickly flew past the walls of the Jade Capital. A bright moon hung in the sky. After a few moments, the black shadow in front finally stopped. Tian Keizi looked around. They were already in the outskirts, surrounded by wild grass. A bright moon hung in the sky, and the person in front finally turned around. It slowly removed the cloak that covered its face. When he saw the person's face, Tian Keizi was slightly shocked. What was that? What he saw was not a person. Tian Keizi felt his hands and feet turn cold. It was a human-shaped golden man. Under the bright moonlight, the golden man's body emitted a dazzling golden light. It was the purest golden light. It was even purer than the purest purple gold coins. The golden man's body was comparable to a human's. Apart from its facial features, it had arms and legs. It looked almost like a human. If a normal person saw such a monster, their first thought would be shock. But Tian Keizi was the martial saint of later Qin. He quickly recognized that the golden man in front of him was not an ordinary object. It was an artifact with life. An artifact of life. Tian Keizi's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. Let's go. Tian Keizi's expression changed. He moved quickly and was about to escape. He wasn't afraid of the artifact of life. What he was truly afraid of was the owner of the artifact. The appearance of an artifact of life meant that it was very likely that the person behind it was an expert on the level of the Master Summoner or even Emperor Zhao. Only such an expert could have a special artifact refining method to refine such a heaven-defying artifact of life. Suddenly, 5 or 6 dazzling flames appeared in the sky. The flames were unusual. They were as muddy as mud and were not the usual red flames. The flames turned into 5 or 6 raging flood dragons, blocking Tian Keizi's retreat in all directions. Running. In a place where the moonlight couldn't reach, a tall figure stood. The figure stood with his back facing Tian Keizi. His gray eyes were stained with blood and revealed a trace of ferocity. Tian Keizi, you can't escape. Tian Keizi couldn't see the figure's appearance clearly. He could only see the black and red dragons around him staring at him. The moon and the sky disappeared. The sound of the wind and the chirping of the insects seemed to have frozen. Tian Keizi felt as if he was trapped in a quagmire. His movements were no longer agile. Tian Keizi had always thought highly of himself. In his opinion, he was undoubtedly the most powerful martial artist on the continent. But at this moment, he felt as small as a speck of dust in front of that figure. He suddenly realized the true nature of those flood dragons. That was dark magic. Kill him. The man's voice was clear and loud. In the dark night, it was like a stone falling into a lake. His voice spread out. Tycoon Jin exploded with astonishing power in an instant. Around it, rings of golden dough cheese shot out like exploding flames. Boom! Tian KZ and Tycoon Jean instantly clashed. Half an hour later, Tian KZ was panting heavily. He looked at the artifact of life not far away with hatred. What kind of monster was that? Its speed, its attack power, and its imitation ability. How could such a monster appear in Zhou State? Who are you people? Why do you want to kill me? Tian KZ was sure that whether it was the dark magic or this artifact of life, they were not something the residents of Yun could possess. Too slow. You're not enough to protect her. The man's voice was like the seduction from the depths of the dark night. It was low, lazy, noble, and full of killing intent. When it heard the man's voice, Tycoon Jin's body emitted a violent killing intent. In the past day and night of training, the man had used such words to provoke it every time. The man had repeatedly instilled a concept into it. It was the artifact of life, and its existence was to kill. As if it was hypnotized, Tycoon Jin only had one thought in its mind. Protect its master, Yunxing, and kill all those who threatened Yunxing's life. Tycoon Jin suddenly leaped into the air. His figure merged with the jade round moon in the sky. The moon was no longer bright and flawless. It was a bloody red, filled with killing intent and violence. A golden dot rose slowly, like a firework that suddenly bloomed under the moon. Chapter 4:16. The sun had just risen in the Zhou State's Marshal St. General's manor. You said that Tian Kezi ran away before the battle. Yunba had heard this shocking news early in the morning. For today's competition, Yunba had even brought out the armor he used on the battlefield back then. He polished it until it shone brightly in preparation for the big battle with Tian Kezi, blinding that little thief's dog eyes. Who knew that just as Yunba was about to step out of the Marshal St. General's manor and valiantly prepare for the competition, a piece of news that shocked the entire Yujing city spread. The entire Yujing city was shaken. Tian Kezi had run away before the battle. No, to be more precise, Tian Kezi had gone missing. He had indeed gone missing. The Dark Prince's men had searched the entire Later Qin embassy. They were just short of digging 3 feet into the ground, but they still couldn't find Tian Kezi. The dignified Later Qin Marshal Saint had actually disappeared the night before the battle. There were no letters, no sudden illness, and no news. Tian Kezi had disappeared without a word. The only explanation was that he was worried that he couldn't beat Yunba, so he ran away before the battle. Otherwise, how could such an adult, and a martial saint at that, disappear just like that? Yunba first cursed a few times, but then he laughed. Now that Tian Kezi had disappeared, all the problems were no longer a problem. Running away before the battle was the biggest joke in the world. The Dark Prince of Later Qin wouldn't have the face to ask for a quarter of the purple gold mine. Needless to say, the Later Qin and Tang Yuan alliance could all go to hell. It was said that after the Later Qin soldiers at the border received this news, their morale plummeted. All of them cursed Tian Kezi's father and mother, cursing all 18 generations of his ancestors. Tian Kezi's family in Later Qin was also unable to recover from this setback. Compared to Later Qin, the Tang Yuan kingdom's reaction was also very subtle. Tang Yuan's second prince, Li Shao, also received this bizarre news in the shortest time possible. Li Shao was good at scheming. In Zhou State, he had missed out on the purple gold mine and had always held a grudge in his heart. The other party was also powerful, snatching half of his purple gold mine, but no matter how hard he searched, he could not find any clues. Li Shao could only take revenge on Zhou State. The alliance between Later Qin and Tang Yuan had been secretly ordered by Li Shao, and he'd been the one to pass the bottle of amniotic fluid to Xuan Wuji. The entire plan was flawless. Li Xiao had even made meticulous preparations. As soon as Yunba was defeated, he would immediately invade Zhou State. Who knew that at this critical juncture, Tian Kz actually disappeared? If he was alive, he wanted to see him. If he was dead, he wanted to see his corpse. Later Qin, what did they do? Li Xiao was still unwilling to retreat. The hidden crown prince has already ordered the army to retreat 100 li. Everything will be done to find Marshal Saint Tian Kz, the spy reported. We will also bide our time for now. Li Xiao gave the order and waited for news from Jade Capital. No one was happier than the Emperor of Zhou State when Tian Kz went missing. The Emperor of Zhou State was overjoyed and secretly delighted. This was undoubtedly the best result. Later Qin had lost a lot of face. It was said that the hidden crown prince of Later Qin killed 2 of Tian Kz's attendants in a fit of anger. However, what everyone didn't know was that there was another power that had obtained even greater benefits. That power was truly silent and had made a fortune. That was the Wanlong gambling house. In the previous competition between Tian Kz and Yunba, because both of them were martial saints, roughly half of the people bet on each side. Who knew that after Tian Kz made such a scene, no one won or lost, and all the bets went to the Wandong gambling house. The gamblers cursed at the Wandong gambling house, but they could only swallow their anger. When Yunxing received the news, she had just left the magic tower. She looked calm and collected, but in her heart, she couldn't wait to find Yi Baiming and Tycoon Jean, who she hadn't seen for a few days. What caught Yunxing's attention was that Tycoon Jean had changed a lot. Looking at its limbs carefully, it was very different from when Yunxing had just refined it. Every inch of its body was tougher and more powerful. The originally dazzling purple-gold color had also turned red. That was because it was stained with blood. In just one day and night, Tycoon Jean, who was originally a middle-level life artifact, had reached the peak of the middle level. It could break through to the high level at any time, and could display more than 50% of the power of the battle skills and magic that it imitated. The current Tycoon Jean could be called a real war artifact. Yunxing couldn't help but feel happy when she saw this. Night Fox was quite reliable. Tian Kz really disappeared, but she was soon depressed again. I made a mistake. I should have gone to the Wandong gambling house to bet on a draw before the competition. That way, I would have made a fortune. The Wandong gambling house is really lucky. The owner of the gambling house has really made a fortune this time. Oh well, I've also secretly scooped up some purple gold from Night Fox. It can be considered a consolation prize, Yunxing thought to herself. With Tian Quozi's disappearance, all of the gambling money went to the Wandong gambling house. A rough calculation showed that the Wandong gambling house had earned tens of millions of gold coins. If Yunxing knew that the person behind Wandong gambling house was Yi Baiming, she would probably vomit 3 liters of blood. Reality proved that a fox was a fox. It wouldn't lose out in anything. In the next few days, the entire Jade capital was discussing Tian Kz's disappearance. Yunxing distributed a portion of the purple gold sacred weapons that she had refined to the hunting corps. At a certain place in Wandong gambling house, Yunxing, Qi, and the others had come to participate in the stone gambling banquet. Long Hua and the other stewards of Wandong gambling house stood to one side. The 4 stewards of Wandong gambling house were Long Hua, Long Shuwei, Long Feng, and Long Tuesday. The 4 of them were 3 men and 1 woman. Their appearances and ages were all different. They rarely appeared at Wandong gambling house at the same time, but today, they were all gathered together. Yi Baiming sat alone. Long Hua was the oldest of the 4. He was more than 10 years older than Yi Baiming, but in front of him, the 4 of them were all respectful and reverent. Yi Baiming was a natural-born king. This was something that the four of them already understood when he left the cold palace and appeared in front of them a few years ago. There was a person standing beside him. His back was somewhat familiar, but his entire body was like the people of Bloody Hand Tycoon. He was tightly wrapped in a set of fish scale armor, and there wasn't a single gap from head to toe. No one would have expected that the former martial saint of later Qin would become like this overnight, a puppet without any thoughts of his own. His empty eyes and silent appearance showed that he had long forgotten the fact that he was once Tian Kezi. Master, the gambling house has made a lot of profit this time. The total income is 33 million gold coins. Longhua acted as if he didn't see the extra person at all. He had followed Yi Baiming for so long and understood many things. He didn't ask what he shouldn't. Allocate 5 million gold coins to recruit people and expand the Netherworld Guard. Yi Baiming flipped through the account book and took out a storage ring. Longhua took the storage ring and looked at the things inside. He couldn't help but be shocked. In a place like Wandong Gambling House, there were all kinds of people. Longhua's eyesight was also much better than the average person's. When he saw the weapons in the storage ring, he couldn't help but be shocked. These weren't ordinary weapons. They were all saint-level weapons fused with part of purple gold. Where did Master get such a large batch of violet gold weapons? Chapter 417. Master, there's something I don't understand. Long Shuai, one of the four long men, walked out. Long Shuai was the only woman among the four of them. She was also the youngest. She was about 18 or 19 years old. She had a graceful figure and a pair of watery eyes that were full of emotions. The four people of Wanlong Gambling House were four very good magicians. Among them, Longhua and Long Tu were old people who had served Empress Li. Long Feng and Long Shuai were later discovered by Yi Baiming and joined Wanlong Gambling House. The outside world thought that Yi Baiming had been secluded in the cold palace for many years. In fact, he had already been moving around the mainland when he was still blind. But at that time, his identity was only the owner of Wanlong Gambling House. Long Shuai was the latest to join. Her original name was Shuai Yuran. She was born in a scholarly family. But because her family's fortune declined, she was bought into a brothel. At that time, she was only 10 years old, but she was already very intelligent. She was not willing to be buried in a brothel for the rest of her life. So, she escaped when a guest was drunk. Coincidentally, when Yi Baiming and Longhua went out to do something, they happened to meet Shuai Yuran, who was being chased by a brothel. So, they saved her. Yi Baiming checked and found that Shuai Yuran was actually a genius in learning magic. So, he simply took her in and changed her name to Long Shuai. Until now, Long Shuai still remembered how she looked when she first met Yi Baiming. It was a snowy day. She was wearing the clothes of a prostitute and stumbled all the way out of the brothel. Behind her, the people of the brothel were shouting and cursing ferociously. It was like the sound of a demon urging her to die. She only knew to keep running forward. Until she fell to the ground and cold ice shards hit her face. Just when she thought that she would never have the chance to get rid of the group of demons behind her, two people appeared in front of her. Under Grey Fox's command, there was a boy who was so handsome that it made people fall into a trance. Beside him was a tall man. The boy's eyes were dim, but the aura on his body was so soul-stirring. Facing the people of the brothel, the boy only said one word, "Kill." That was clearly a child, but when that word was spat out from that mouth that was as thin as a blade, it made one's hair stand on end. Even a true emperor would not be able to maintain his composure in the face of an army of 10,000. The moment Longhua made a move, he killed the head of the brothel. From now on, you will be called Long Shui. I am your master, Yi Baiming. The boy's words were like a brand that was branded in Shui Yuren's heart. That was the only time Long Shui had ever heard Yi Baiming's name. Since then, she could only call him master. Long Shui only found out about Yi Baiming's true identity a year later. In her mind, her master, who was born with the temperament of a royal family, had an illustrious background. He was the former crown prince of Zhou State. After learning about this, Long Shui was very indignant. She had seen Yi Bailian, the crown prince of Zhou State, who was a lecherous, cowardly, and incompetent mediocre man. Such a person actually replaced her noble master in her mind and became the crown prince of Zhou State. Long Shui believed that her master would never succumb to such a person. Sure enough, in the next few years, she saw her master secretly cultivating forces. He was nominally an idle prince, but in fact, he had an army that could not be underestimated. This time, Long Shui met Yi Baiming again after several years. She was pleasantly surprised to find that her master's eyes had recovered. Her master, who was originally as handsome as a god, now looked as flawless as a beautiful jade. Looking at Yi Baiming, Long Shui could not help but be infatuated. Her memories suddenly stopped. Long Shui. Long Hua looked at Long Shui with dissatisfaction. She had obviously dressed up carefully today. Her beautiful face looked a little more enchanting. Long Shui collected her thoughts and looked at her master with half infatuation. It's fine. Long Shui, do you want to ask me why I don't take advantage of this competition to weaken Zhou State's power and force the crown prince to abdicate? Yi Baiming did not take Long Shui's rudeness to heart. Yes, according to master's plan these years, isn't it to make the emperor of Zhou State a mere figurehead? Within Zhou State, there are few martial practitioners. The residence of Yun is already the last support of Zhou State. If Yun Ba dies this time, won't we have a better chance? Although 10 million imperial gold coins was a considerable amount, it was nothing compared to the Wanlong gambling house, which made hundreds of thousands of gold coins a day. Yun Ba is now poisoned. He can no longer support the residents of Yun. As for Yun Songlong, when he finds out the truth of what happened back then, he will definitely no longer be loyal to the emperor of Zhou State. Yi Baiming muttered. Indeed, he had once wanted to use this opportunity to cut off Yun Ba, who was like the emperor of Zhou State's right-hand man. He had already started to make meticulous plans to weaken the residents of Yun several years ago. However, a small episode had appeared in the middle of this, forcing him to stop his plans. Yun Xing, because he did not want her to be sad, he had stopped this plan. Fortunately, although there had been some changes to the plan, the final goal had been achieved. If he didn't guess wrong, the real crisis had just erupted. Within Yujing City, there was a surging undercurrent. The situation of some rejoicing and some worrying had yet to be broken. In the main temple of the Continental Law Temple, Elder Judge Ji Yu was meditating as usual. Suddenly, his eyebrows twitched. An ominous feeling in his heart grew stronger. Ji Yu immediately stopped meditating. With a teleportation, he was already standing in front of the heavenly mandate mirror. He looked at the mirror and found that there was a crack on the heaven's mandate mirror, which was originally intact. The crack was very small, but it was especially glaring on the mirror. The heavenly mandate mirror had broken. Could it be that something had happened to the situation on the continent? Ji Yu hurriedly performed a divination. Looking at the divination, his expression became even more gloomy. Elder Judge Ming, there's news from the Great Zhou Dynasty. The martial sages of the Great Zhou Dynasty and the later Qin Dynasty are dueling. A boy from the temple ran in and handed a letter to Ji Yu. Ji Yu suppressed the unhappiness in his heart and opened the letter. The letter was sent by his old friend, Wen Dagua, the great master of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. The ink on the letter was still wet. The few lines were especially glaring. Tian Quozi is missing, Yunba is alive. Ji Yu's originally calm expression changed drastically at this moment. There was only one thought in his mind right now, and that was to immediately contact Xia Wenxiu. The heavenly mandate mirror's predictions were never wrong. Yunba's fate had been a bloody disaster the last time he performed a divination. But this time, there was a glimmer of hope. Fate could not be changed. If there really was a change, there could only be one reason: someone had leaked the heavenly secrets. Ji Yu immediately drew a light magic array. Soon, Xia Wenxiu appeared on the other side of the array.